Shields up, Iron Breakers, and welcome back to another episode of the Kast. I'm back here with Mike from Preach Gaming, and we are going to be talking about all things Monster Hunter World Iceborne, with spoilers included. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm okay. I think my audience worries about me more, so we should give context to this for our listeners. I've been working on Alatreon all day. So I put approximately, I think, a day and a half, close to 2 stream days into Alatreon. He's not dead. People get really worried that I'm like frustrated and angry and stuff, but compared to raid bosses, I've spent over a month on a boss. This is nothing to me. My gaming ways, I'm enjoying myself, but I'm stuck and I'm waiting to see something that I've not seen yet. Because there is something I'm definitely missing on that fight.
I was very concerned because I'm watching you play and I'm like, I've been in that exact same mindset. Like, to give you an idea, when Alatreon came out, probably by the end of my stream, I was just like, oh, what the hell with this boss? This boss sucks. It's just absolutely terrible. I was probably raging just like that, I have no doubt, because it happens to me all the time. Because you're live streaming, you're just like, I personally don't really have a filter to my emotions. I think you have a little bit of one because I see you and you're losing and you're still like smiling and stuff, and I just
no,
like,
I'm happy.
Upset.
No, that's legit. That's legit. I'm okay with it. Like, I get frustrated when things happen that are out of my control. That's when I'm genuinely like, this is just annoying me now, because that fight can snowball incredibly quickly and just ruin your whole day really fast. And because, again, for your Monster Hunter listeners who know the fight, I could not figure out for the life of me how I survive his room-wide AoE. And so I had to bank my cat reses for that, because I tried everything I could think of to survive that mechanic, and I just could not. So it meant that if I made any mistake which caused the actual cat res to happen during the fight, that was it. It was game over. Like, I couldn't physically survive the rest of the fight. So that's where I was.
Do we have to start with Alatreon, or can I pick at your brain a little bit before we get... Because I feel like Alatreon is the big climax of information here.
Sure, I'm fine. There's loads I need to know.
Okay.
I would have Googled days and days ago by a long way.
So, listen. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland, and I show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes.
We're drinking red Kool-Aid, dude. We're the Kool-Aid man all day, every day. I did say this morning, it's like, today's it. It's over. I'll be happy to get back to normal streaming and have my chat open as well. That'd be fine.
So that's like my first question. What happens after this podcast? Like, are you just kind of like done with Monster Hunter, or after you learn more, tomorrow you're going to stream Monster Hunter again, go kill it?
Oh, no. It dies.
Okay.
There's no going back now. We're in too deep. Like, the only one I suspect I'm not going to kill, and I said to the chat this morning, is like, there's a boss that I know exists because I found it in the events list while we were looking something called, we've called a Fatalis, but there's a boss called Fatalis. That, at least at the size of it, requires Master Rank 99. And I've been playing for 150 hours, and I'm 40-something.
Only the event version requires Master Rank 99. Since we're beyond spoilers, I can tell you that. You can fight that at Master Rank 20. I think it's 24, if I'm not mistaken. So you can actually fight it before that. It's just that's the event version. I don't know if they juiced up the event version or not. I don't really remember. It's been a very long time since I've done it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so on that one is the only one I said, if I will leave it up to my audience to decide, is like, do we do that fight blind? Because as far as I know, Alatreon and that is all I've got left, unless there's something in the Guiding Lands, because they sort of spawn bosses.
So everything that is in the Guiding Lands now, because of the nature of how the game was implemented, you can fight everything that is in the Guiding Lands without actually doing Guiding Lands in the form of event quests. So like, for instance... Again, we're in spoiler territory at this point, so whatever. Have you ever fought Gold Rathian?
No.
And Silver Rathalos?
So they're variations on things I've already fought.
Yes, but they are way more powerful than the previous ones, and they have new attacks and all of these things. These were monsters that initially were only available in the Guiding Lands. But since then, Capcom's introduced them as event quests. So if you want to do that content without grinding the guiding lands, you can go and you can do that content. You can farm their materials, do all of that stuff. That's not really a problem.
Okay. Yeah. So those are the things I'd say I would ask. Like, do you want us to do this blind or not? Because I've based it on the weapon tree. There's only two things that have question marks next to them. So that's why I was like, I think we're close to the end of the bosses.
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of new ones.
basically, in terms of difficulty, Alatreon, even for some people, consider Alatreon to be the hardest boss because it depends on how good you are at Fatalis. So some people will say, oh, Fatalis is actually the hardest one, whereas others will say, oh, actually, Alatreon is the hardest one for me. So this actually changes depending on who you ask in the community. But those are kind of like the two big last things that you have to do. Now, there were monsters that were added after Fatalis. I know for a fact that Arch-Tempered Velkhana was added after Fatalis. I forget if there was anything after Arch-Tempered Velkhana, because I always see Arch-Tempered Velkhana as the last thing, but I think there might have been some more things. But I think Arch-Tempered Velkhana was the last kind of like hard thing, which is just a super juiced up version of Velkhana, which will absolutely destroy you. But yeah, those were kind of like the last bosses. So basically, you are at a point where once you kill Fatalis, there really isn't much more that is going to be more challenging than that. And this game actually commits something of a cardinal sin for me, which a lot of people disagree with me on, which is once you kill Fatalis, once you make his set, there's no reason to get any other set because his set is just from a power scaling level. It's like, let's say, the closest thing to Fatalis set is like 50 magnitudes of order weaker than the Fatalis set. It's just
it's
like
the final
brutal,
armor. You beat the game armor.
Yeah, you beat the game armor. It's super powerful. Yeah, it's just for me. Okay. I was just like, no, I want to keep hunting things and doing like these crazy mixed sets and whatnot. And after Fatalis, there just was no reason to do that afterwards.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I understand why they do that. That's like more of an RPG trope. Is like at this point, you can kill everything. Like if you can do this and you can farm it, you're good. Yeah, you're all good. But I get what you're saying. Is like I like the initial Monster Hunter stuff of like I can build my set around what I'm doing, because that's more monster hunting.
Exactly.
I'm figuring out what the boss wants. I mean, I'm doing that now, but mainly just through decorations because I only have the one armor set. I tried to reduce the farming as much as possible on stream time, and I haven't seen a reason to change. Especially the two. I guess this is one question I have for you. I spent the longest time so far on Raging Brachiosaur or whatever it's called.
Raging Brachydios.
Brachydios. And he came as a pair in a seemingly like lieutenant style quest, which is how Monster Hunter seems to work, because it gives you like a quest that's like 2 lieutenants and then followed up by a big boss.
No.
It does that in the base game and something else. This wasn't.
That's not how it works. It's just you get to a certain point, because what's happening is the game released with a certain amount of content, and then they just kept adding more stuff in. And so there's kind of like a logic to the way things go. It's just once you get there and all of the content's been released, once you unlock like a certain master rank, it's like, oh, these new quests just opened up for you. So you're interpreting it as like, oh, these guys are kind of like the 2 bosses that you do before the next boss. When in reality, it's just like, it was just like that. And there's also some things that are a little bit weird now because they were made in a way that made sense when we were doing it, because it's like, okay, guys, here's a new monster. Here's Rajang, and we do Rajang, and it's really cool, and that unlocks a whole new area, which then unlocks Stygians and Ogre, which you've also done. And, you know, but basically you're progressing through all of these quests one at a time. But once all of the DLC is in there, it's just tons and tons of content, and everything gets kind of like mixed up and whatnot. Even I don't remember what's the proper order, but no, it's not like a lieutenant system that then unlocks another boss.
Yeah, that's what I felt it was at the time. But what my question came to, like, the difficulty of those. Raging Brachy was I think Alatreon's about to beat it, or if already has, and how long I've spent on it. That fight was horrendous for me. In fact, you went and did it in the same armor to see what it was like.
And here's the thing. Like, I did it, and initially, let's say when I did that, my first try, I was like, oh, I'm not doing this. There is no way, dude. I'm not going to sit here. Everybody knows, usually what I say is, whenever I kill a monster, whenever I do something that's challenging in Monster Hunter, it's like, I'm not the best player. If I can do it, anybody can do it. That's kind of like the point that I usually bring up. And so when I went in for the first try and I saw how much damage I was taking because I couldn't upgrade the armor, because I didn't have enough Zenny to upgrade the armor, I was like, oh, this is way too much damage. I have to go almost no hit. And for some strange reason, Mike will refuse to equip one evade extender. Just one evade extender, Mike.
I can't
just
tell
one.
which one is better.
I just
sometimes
wanted one.
one is. I wish the game would tell me some information. It's infuriating. Like the thing on the iframes, it's like increases it. I'm like, by what? By like a flea's penis or by a lot?
So
and then it's like the next one does it and the next one does it. And I don't understand. Is this taking 0 and multiplying it? What is it doing? Like it's Freddy. That thing annoys me.
But anyway, so I went through, and in the first attempt, I was like, I don't know if I can actually do it. But because I'm stubborn, I go in a second time, and on the second time, okay, this might be doable. And then the third time, which was the struggle that you saw, where I carted like twice almost in a row, and you saw Moxie for the first time, I think, which is that one time that you're like, hey, he's cheating. He didn't die. How does he have 1 HP?
The food buff drove me insane. the food buff thing. I mean, is there a way of forcing that buff?
Not only you can force that buff, there's a skill that gives it to you, like an armor skill. It's called Guts. But basically, the thing is, that skill is not super useful when you're fighting a fire monster. I was actually lucky that I wasn't set ablaze, because otherwise I would have just died. Because if you are on fire and you get hit by that, because the game lets you survive with 1 HP, but if you have like a ticking debuff, you'll die anyways. But I wasn't on fire, and I think I don't know if I had the fireproof mantle or not, because I was sitting in a puddle of fire. I thought I was going to die. And then I didn't, but then he hit me and I died anyway. But yeah, that was Moxie. But that attempt, I was like, that was probably going to be the last attempt that I was going to do, because I was like, this takes way too long each attempt, and I don't feel like doing this right now.
Yeah, it's like half. I think yours was half an hour.
Yeah.
And mine was over that, like 40 minutes or something. I killed it. That was the best fight I've done so far, because of culminating in drama.
Yeah.
Just because of the drama of like the struggle I went through to get through it over days, right? And this is one of those things as a streamer, and I can't tell. And thankfully I have the team to feed it back to me. It's like, I hope people aren't really bored and annoyed.
No.
Because I'm just doing this. But they're like, no, people are well into this. And I'm like, I don't understand why, but sure. And then it has that special final phase. And I killed it in the first time I saw that, but that whole thing was terrifying. I was like, there's another phase to this fight. So I kind of thought I'm either at 50%, and now we've just got to do a whole other thing.
If you remember, when I sent the video to Bex, I told her, but he's not allowed to see past 2305. It's because that's when he would go into the final phase. And I was like, no. You can't see. You have to see that on stream. Can't see it on the video.
Yeah, I was horrified. I walked in, the fight has changed, the boss is totally different colored now, and the whole room's filling with fire, and I just can't cope with what's happening. And obviously I had a heart rate monitor on, which was great, because usually because you can tell I'm not actually angry. My heart rate doesn't really change. It'll chill.
Yeah, I noticed.
But then in that fight, it went to 100. Because I was legitimately like, I cannot believe this is happening. I'm about to die. Everything is terrifying. And I've fought so hard to get here, and I don't want to throw this away and have to do it all again to get here, which was great. But then, coming back to what I was saying, it was at the same quest line as Furious Reggie.
Furious Rajang, yeah.
That I killed in 3 tries. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, how is this the same quest? To kill these two. One's 2.5 days, one is 3 tries.
Because, yeah, I don't remember which one came first, but yeah, Furious Rajang is nowhere close to being as hard as Raging Brachydios. I mean, it depends. Some people will think otherwise, because it also depends on, like, weapon matchups, because by now I'm sure you've realized certain weapons will do better against certain monsters. That's just the nature of the beast. But, yeah, so I feel like I wanted to start by, since we already know that you're going to be going back and you're going to be killing Eltray and all of that stuff, has this experience made you want to play Wilds?
Oh, massively. In fact, it got weird. The guys reached out and said, do you want to come to London and play Wilds? It's not an event. We're not paying you or anything, but we'd love to meet you. Come down. Well, we've got Wilds at the office. Come and play. And I was like, I don't want to be spoiled. And then they went, because they've been watching the stream, they were like, oh, we get it. We get it. We were just reaching out to say, do you want to come down for a couple of days and you can play the game? So I was like, oh no, I'm totally in. I'm fully invested, and I don't want to be spoiled and play it early or anything like that. I want to go along with the
Yeah,
with the audience progress.
I was poking them to kind of like reach out. I was like,
Oh yeah, they did great. They've been really good. They're so into it as well, because I think after they realized I hadn't discovered the tent, which took like 5 days, like until I realized you could use the tent. They were genuinely like, why hasn't he discovered the tent? And it turns out because you have to go and click on it to get the tutorial for it. It doesn't tell you to go and do it. And they just assumed that people would go and browse around and things like that. And I didn't, because the quest start tells you to go off and away.
But it's also, I feel like one of the reasons behind that might be because you're streaming, right? And so therefore you're conscientious of like, okay, I don't want to waste the stream's time. So you're not like exploring as much as you were if you were by yourself, I would.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
I wish that was the case. For
really?
I really do.
It's not even that.
No, when I zone in and I'm at a little camp, that makes sense to me. And they're like, hey, follow this trail and get started on your mission. I'm off. I'm on my way. And they also have the chest next to you, which gives you supplies for the mission.
Blue chest.
So that's where I figure, okay, well, that's where you get stuff. That's your item box, because it's an item box. It is an item box. So yeah, no, I didn't notice that. Or the canteen. So
So let's get started with your biggest complaints and feedback, which was the thing that I asked you on the last podcast at the very tail end. Like, what was the biggest complaints that you have, biggest points of feedback that you would provide to the team? Because like I said, one of the biggest things about the way that you do it is that you don't look up guides, you don't look up information, which makes it more entertaining, but also provides a different insight and a different experience.
Yeah, it's whether or not the team likes, because if you go back, I'm not comparing the two games, but the whole purpose of the Souls genre was that they purposely didn't give you information because they wanted that online community to form. And a lot of devs do this now, is they'll purposely leave information out because somebody will figure it out, and then there's discourse happening on a forum or YouTube or on Reddit, and people are working through things, so it creates a buzz around the game where they're all discovering things that aren't the game. My biggest things that I just could not figure out, and there's no tutorial for it, and we definitely had this feedback from the audience and from myself. A lot of people believe certain information is in the tutorial somewhere, and it isn't. It's just assumed knowledge, or it's acquired somewhere, and you noticed it or whatever. One of the first ones that was tricky was actually noticing Enrage. There's actually two things on the UI that show you Enrage: the heartbeat monitor and the red eye. The red eye doesn't get mentioned at all until you're doing Culve. Then it tells you in that tutorial about Culve that the red eye is an Enrage symbol. Until then, you don't have that information. And I was working it on. It's just a silly thing that's like could be helpful.
I haven't checked all the tutorials, but I could swear that's got to be somewhere.
I bet you can. It's not in there. I've read through them all. It's not. If someone finds it, then fair enough. But I looked, I checked on stream. I went through every tutorial relating to this and could not find it. Another one is one feedback I would give to the team, because it's actually massively useful. Wall banging. The tutorial on how to do this relies on the enemy drooling. I think they call it flinch, which is not how it works. You could do it as long as it's not enraged,
as long
which
as
would
it's
have
not
been.
Enraged.
I went 12 days and accidentally shot something and it wall banged, and I was like, why the hell did that happen? Because the tutorial, which I did twice, makes you wall bang by getting it to drool. It says don't even do it until it's flinched, which is the safest way of doing it. But you can totally do it any other time. And it's a massive amount of damage. And it's an open window. And doing most of the game without that knowledge was... I look back on my original fights and I'm like, this is so stupid. Like, some of these enemies can just be chain wallbanged over and over again. And you don't know that even if you do the tutorials, because it never mentions like, oh, by the way, as long as an enemy's not enraged, you can attempt to wallbang it. But you'll have to pick your moment. Something like that. A bit of dialogue would have helped, but they don't do that anywhere. Which was a revelation to me. I was like, why did I wallbang this? How does mounting work?
I think we as a community figured out that we could wallbang out of Enrage very, very fast. Because I remember day one, we were wallbanging. Well, probably even before day one, because we had the beta to experiment. And we were all just like running around figuring out how the clutch claw worked and all of that stuff. So we probably figured that out even before the game came out during the beta. But
is that pre-tutorial of Clutch Claw? I'm just curious whether
Yeah,
is it just a massive
before the
people, someone did it
tutorial.
accident.
Yeah,
Where you may have tried more things. It's
yeah,
one of
we
those
were
things where if the
experimenting.
tutorial specifically tells you this is how it works, that's the knowledge you're going to take with you, right?
Yeah.
Because the tutorial's like, hey, you've got to flinch this. Now you need to hook on and do X and Y. Okay, that's how that works. You
But
wouldn't
see,
try and do it elsewhere.
do you remember when I told you in the first podcast that there's no way to replay the original base world because they changed it because of the clutch claw? See, by now you will have recognized that there's like two different types of drooling. At least I hope you've noticed that.
I've noticed a purple one and a white one.
No, like the purple is when he's poisoned.
Yeah, that's what I figured it was. So
No.
if there's a different type, and
So-
I know Alatrain doesn't drool. He,
So there's like
looks at
there's
you.
like a stagger and what we in the community refer to as a clagger, which is the specific stagger that they made for the clutch claw. And the difference is when the monster is staggered, he'll just like start drooling in place, and he's just like, or maybe he'll get a little stagger and then he'll stop in place for a bit. And when it's a clagger, he'll stagger backwards away from you,
Yeah, I've
and
seen
then you're
that.
supposed to clutch claw it. Which, even if you don't have,
What?
yes.
I thought that was just like a momentary, like, oh, you're getting somewhere.
No, when he
Like
like
he's-
moves away from you a little bit and then like stands back and drools for a little bit.
I'm thinking of when sometimes they like take a hit and they sort of move back a bit, but they're not like staggered like they do when they drool, where their head sort of like goes from side to side.
No, that's just
It's
a regular
so-
stagger.
okay, that's where I was
but
about to
there's
lose
one-
my mind.
but in the thing is in the whole drooling thing, right? There's one where he just like drools in place, and then there's one where he kind of like moves back a little bit and then starts drooling. That's the one that we call
okay.
the clagger. And the reason why a lot of us don't like it is because even if you turn off the DLC, the claggers still happen, but then you don't have the clutch claw, so you can't even capitalize on it, and it's miserable because the
Right, I
monster
don't-
runs away from you.
It's paying different attention because I've just been looking for drool, any form of drool whatsoever, for that to happen. So no, I haven't noticed that at all.
Yeah,
in
but
fact, someone told me that I was doing a clagger, but I got told it was something else because I figured out that you could clutch a drooling monster but drop off and it reset the stun.
Yeah,
That
that's
made
from the
and that's
clagger.
isn't
Because-
that just on any drool?
No. So like
Oh.
a regular drool when he just like stands in place, that's a different thing. And when he like steps away from you a little bit and then starts drooling, that's the one where if you clutch claw it extends it a little bit. So that's why I think I do that on the Brachydios at some point where I just like clutch and then I drop back down and start
Yeah, you did.
attacking. Yeah.
I knew about it then. I'd noticed it because I got very frustrated if I didn't have my Bam Bam ZSD ready and it was already weakened. I didn't want to re-weaken it. So
Yeah.
I had noticed that once you clutch on, you can do whatever you want to do. So I was like, oh, it resets the timer as long as you get on
because
within
that
the drool.
that mechanic was introduced specifically because of the clutch claw. And so
Yeah.
now that you know that you can clutch claw everything so long as it's not enraged, how do you feel about the clutch claw?
My only frustration is I don't mind it at all, actually. I just the frustration is the targeting system
Yep.
is sometimes absolutely atrocious, like really, really bad.
So,
And
so let me tell you something that I know I think your chat wants me to tell you this. You can't clutch onto Rajang's head.
Oh, I know. It's his arm. It's
Okay.
technically his.
Always
Yeah, I
goes to
figured
the
that
arms.
out. Yeah, I knew that. I figured that out on a boss midway through this. Is like, okay, there are just areas you can't clutch to, even though you think you should be able to. It just doesn't work. I think Brachy's one of those. I think it always goes to the
Yeah.
tail or something. So yeah, I did know that. But there'll be so many times when you've targeted, you've locked on, and and by the time you press the button, it depends on how erratic the monster is. You're miles away. Or Alatrain in particular, if he does his downward frost breath, you could clutch out of it and like actually capitalize on it, and you will be pointing right at him, and it just was like, no, you can't. That's not going to work. You're like, dude,
Yeah.
the distance. It's the distance judgment feels very off, is what it is. The distance off feels like I'm really close and I can't get to him, or I'm really far away and it works. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to it.
The clutch claw is notoriously imprecise depending on the monster that you are playing. Sometimes you can nail a bunch of clutch claw. Even speedrunners will say this, where sometimes they'll just nail it and then suddenly, for some reason, they're aiming the exact same way and they end up in the hind legs instead of the front legs. And I'm like, oh, run ruined. and they have to
Yeah, I
reset.
aimed at Ali's head today because he does a double headbutt that you can clutch onto, and it went through him and put me on his back leg.
Yep.
And I can't even fathom how this is possible. Like, it's so
Yeah.
weird and very upsetting because you can't move when you're on him, otherwise he knocks you off. But
He's
yeah,
he's a little
that's
bit
my problem
erratic.
with it. It's not consistent. That's my issue with it. It's not consistent. You feel like it should be. I get that sometimes I see the animation of like his wings or something's wing or arm slightly moved in front of you, so I could think they could probably work on a way of like snapshotting where you targeted because that's what you're aiming at. And I think you would feel way less frustrated if you snapshot at the point of go. That's where I want to go because it doesn't do that. It'll take into account, oh, well, something moved in the way while you're doing that or something.
No,
Like
there's a better solution. They should just not implement it, and it'll be fine. We should just not have a
I would
clutch
be
claw.
okay with that as well. Yeah, I would be okay with it. I don't like the wound system in general. It is what it is. It just feels like a necessity rather than a fun opportunity. That
See,
you're
in
taking.
Monster Hunter Wilds, they changed the way that wounds work. So you don't have to clutch and weaken. There's not even a clutch claw to begin with. I mean, there is a clutch claw, but it's not like a mechanic. It's part of certain attacks will use a clutch claw.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that they do it now is you just attack the same spot for a bit, and it will get a wound. So like if you attack
That's how
the
it
same-
should work.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I started the game. It's like if I'm choosing to work the leg, work the hind leg, work the tail, and I'm maneuvering and positioning to make that contact, then that should be a weakened area.
Yeah, so that's how it works on the new game that they're making
Yeah,
now. So that's
this just
that's
feels like
already
a
fixed.
debuff.
Yeah.
You're just debuffing the boss for a while, and then you've got to do it. There was so many times doing any boss where I was like, I've got to weaken again because otherwise I'm just kind of wasting my time. I'd be fine without the clutch claw. For movement, it's great, but for actual combat, unless they can refine its control, yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting mechanic though. Did you ever wall bang a monster into another monster? Because that's one of the most fun things to do.
No.
You can do
No,
that.
no, I had no idea. I can't. Wall banging in general is so weird to me that sometimes you can wall bang scenery and it works.
Yes.
Like there's nothing there. It's the edge of a mountain or whatever.
There might be
it
like
totally
a rock in the
works.
ground or something.
Yeah, I've noticed it'll hit a stump in the floor. I've had it where I've just put it into scenery and I'm like, oh, it's not happened because I've aimed it the wrong way or whatever. And it's totally worked. And I'm like, okay, I guess that should work. The one on Alatreon is incredibly frustrating because it's a very tiny wall. And I can't be precise. I guess one improvement could be just like be precise with where I move it to, because you're instinctively pointing the stick where you want it to go, but obviously it just kind of spins.
I
know, it just spins
on the opposite direction of where you are, so you have to hit the side that you want to turn him to. Yeah, it's annoying.
And it went left or right. Like I did it earlier, and he was slightly to the right of the wall, so I hit him to the other side. It went slightly to the left, and he saw him run. And like his wings were banging into the wall, and it didn't give it me. And I was like, I just can't stand.
To give you an idea, because for Alatreon specifically, I wanted to get a clean kill that I'd be happy with. Took me like 13 hours of consecutive attempts to get one that I was happy with. Not a speed run, just like a clean kill. And during that time, I tested to see if I could reliably wall bang on the first clutch. And it was a complete crapshoot. So like I would clutch onto him, rock steady mantle, slap him twice to do a 180 because there's a wall right behind him when you spawn in. So slap him twice to do a 180, do the thing, wouldn't work. Then go do the exact same thing on the next attempt and it would work. And I'd be like, so I gave up. I was like, no, it's not reliable. I'm not doing it. It's annoying.
Yeah, it's not. It's very not. And there's I rage when you clutch during non-enrage. Now, okay, so I have to ask you this: the clutch for me is somehow tied to the speed of enrage. Like the amount of clutches you do or the amount of stuff you do, causes enrage.
It's the amount of slaps. 3 slaps, he enrages. So like,
does that count when you reattach after that?
And throwing him also counts. So like doing the shoot. And yes, it counts.
Right.
So like, let's say you clutch on, you slap him once, then you jump off, clutch on, slap him twice, he'll enrage.
Got it. And it counts with the actual wall bang itself, because
yes.
I noticed if I had to turn someone 3 times and wall bang them, that would work.
But he'd be enraged.
And it's not. Maybe I'm saying twice then. I would notice they would not be enraged, but when I clutch up again, but despite not doing anything, it would enrage while I'm attached.
It was probably going to enrage anyways at that point, but I'm also, it's like I also don't take as much notice of all of the tiny little nuances. I know that like if I slap a tricep 3 times, it's gonna enrage, and usually I know when it's about to enrage, which is why, for instance, in one of the clutches that I did during my attempt, you'll notice that I just threw him. Those are like gamble throws because I know if I slap him, he's gonna enrage. So like I kind of like by feel, I kind of get it. Okay, he's gonna enrage now, or he's really close to enraging. So I'm just gonna try to get a quick wall bang, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So. But yeah, the clutch claw definitely contributes towards enraging, which is why that's another one of the big complaints that the community has in regards to the clutch claw, which is that everything became very formulaic. Which is it enraged? No, it's wall bang time. Like that's it. There's no other decision.
I'm in that.
Yeah, exactly. There's no other decision making whatsoever for the fight. It's like, is it enraged? No, wall bang time. So people will just like run up to a wall to lure the monster in to kind of like wall bang him and all of that stuff. So yeah, it is very powerful, and not all of us like the fact that it really is a binary thing. Is it enraged? No, wall bang. Is it enraged? Okay, attack. Which is why agitator becomes such a precious skill. Which is why when you see secret agitator in Raging Brachydio's set, that's why that's so important. Because you're always, when you're fighting, he's usually going to be enraged, because if he's not enraged, you're wall banging.
That's true. And then benefits. You're putting him back into enrage as well.
Exactly.
I thought once I started wall banging Alatreon a lot today, I noticed that I was fighting the enraged version a hell of a lot more.
And the other thing is, I don't know if this is all monsters. I think all monsters, but most monsters also take additional damage while they're enraged.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
not just from agitator. They baseline take more.
Yeah. They just take more damage because they're enraged. So the more you stack up during an enrage, but it's obviously a risk reward thing, right? Because you're fighting him in enrage, and he's also enraging. And another thing that I wanted to make sure that you were aware is, since we're talking about enrage, just because the monster looks different doesn't mean that it's enraged, which is something that you were concluding earlier in your journey. For instance, when Zinogre...
That's how I was telling it, yeah.
Yeah, when Zinogre was powering up and you'd see, like, lightning in his back and all that stuff, that doesn't mean that he's enraged. It just means that now he deals more lightning elemental damage. And he's also, I believe, more vulnerable to frost elemental damage during that phase as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I noticed on some menus you could change the state of the monster, and the elements and weaknesses do change.
Yeah.
Based on which phase they're in. Which is,
it's not the case. It's not the case for Zinogre. It just, because Zinogre's elemental weakness is already frost. It's just when he's powered up, you can deal even more frost damage than normal. But in the case of Baroth, for instance, whenever he's covered in mud, water damage will kind of like wash the mud away faster.
Yeah, I read that.
And then I forget if it's fire damage or frost damage that deals more damage. I think it's fire damage, but I'm not sure, because I don't know all of these things from head as well. I usually go and just check the hunter's notes to see the weakness. Yeah. But even since we're on the topic of elemental damage, even on the hunter's notes are actually terrible for you to understand elemental weakness, unfortunately, because the way that it works, it's not just a 3-star system. It depends where in the monster you are hitting, and that's data that they don't give you in game, which is weird because they give you that data in the next game. In Monster Hunter Rise, they actually tell you if you hit him in the head, here's the elemental value for the head, here's the elemental value for the belly, and all of that stuff. But I think that for whatever reason, WoWs, they're going back to the simplified star system, and we're like, no, don't do this.
Yeah, this obfuscation of information is a strange decision, because I've seen it in a couple of games now. In fact, World of Warcraft, we're both familiar with, a few years ago decided to reduce the size of its tooltips by just removing important information. And that baffled me. Like, if you've already got that text in there, because this was text that already existed, that they were just removing from tooltips. I was like, have advanced mode?
Yeah.
That's fine. Just have advanced mode. So if you want to tell the casual player, this guy is more vulnerable to frost, I get it, right? Yeah. But if you're an advanced Monster Hunter player and you're like, oh, actually, he is vulnerable to frost, but it's actually like 2x on the head and this and this and this, because you want to really give you precise, that's fine too. Just have advanced tooltips. Like, it's such an easy solution.
Yeah, I agree.
That makes way more sense.
I like advanced tooltips as well, and I guess I have another thing that I have to tell you, which is about damage numbers. Whenever you are looking at a weapon, those damage numbers are fake.
What does that mean? What does that even mean? I don't know what that means.
So they're what we call bloated values, which for whatever reason Capcom decided to use bloated values for Monster Hunter World, and I believe they're doing the same in Monster Hunter Wilds as well. So the way that it works in Monster Hunter is like whenever you have a weapon that's from the same monster, same rank, same thing, all of the weapons deal pretty much the same damage. So like you have a sword and shield, and let's say it's a Rathalos sword and shield, it'll do like 100 damage and 30 fire damage. Most of the weapons in that tree, whether it's a switch axe, a greatsword, whatever, they all deal the same damage. The difference is each of these weapons will have different movement values. So like your attacks that you are doing with the switch axe, each of the attacks has a different movement value that decides how much damage that attack's going to deal.
Okay, so
weapon
that's
damage
sort of
stays the
normalized
same.
speed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a weapon normalization. Okay.
Yeah. But so if you look at the game and you look at the greatsword and you're like, oh, this greatsword deals way more damage than pretty much anything else. Actually, I think it's the hammers that have the highest damage for some reason. But you go in there and you're like, oh, this thing deals more damage than everything else. It's like, no, it's bloated values. It's like estimations. Yeah, most of us.
No, that makes sense to me. I understand that. If you got a rapid fire weapon, it should overall deal the same damage, but it'll come across as much smaller values. Whereas it's slow if you land. Yeah, that's fine. When you said the weapon damage numbers on the tool, I thought you meant on the stat sheet. If one says 800 and another says 1,000, that's not true.
It's not.
It's
not. Yeah, because both of them will deal like 100. It's
still better than the previous one, right?
What?
It's still better than the previous one. If the top end damage is 1,000 and the previous one is the top end damage is 900.
Oh no. Yeah.
That's
the 1,000 is better. Yeah, it is correct.
Yeah,
but it's not actually 1,000. Is what I'm trying to get at.
I know that's totally fine. I'm used to that in many games. Weapon normalization is a normal thing. That's okay.
So you were talking about mounting a little bit earlier. I guess.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I have like so many theories about how mounting works, and none of them are correct, and it drives me mad because I played theory number 1. You can only mount once per battle zone, right? Well, or whatever you guys call them. I know that's wrong now. Theory number 2, it has a diminishing return, which means once you've done it, it has either an internal cooldown or something like that before you can do it again.
Correct.
It can't be. I did it twice back to back the other day, and that threw my whole theory into chaos.
No, you said diminishing returns. I didn't say internal cooldown.
Right. Okay. So let me be more specific with this then. Certain monsters can only be mounted in certain places.
No.
Like it doesn't. No.
No.
So
listen, mounting. It's like, let's put it like this. Think of mounting. Have you used the poison weapon in Monster Hunter?
Dude, I've used 3 weapons since I started the game. I've
used like a weapon that has an ailment. Okay, you've used the blast weapon. I know that.
I've used blast, yes.
Okay, so you've noticed that it doesn't explode all the time.
No,
you
it's
hit
a
the
status
monster.
buildup. Yeah,
it's a status buildup. So you hit the monster a couple of times, builds up status, then it explodes. You'll notice that if you keep hitting the monster, it's going to take you more attacks to get the next explode. And then after that, it'll take even more.
I did not notice that, yeah. But okay, I thought it just used it and then reset and then refilled again.
Yeah, it does reset and refill, but the monster gains resistance. Very much like WoW stunning, right?
Yeah.
Because it has diminishing return since, like, I don't know, Burning Crusade or whatever. But yeah, so every ailment in the game pretty much works like that. So sleep. If you get a sleep weapon to put the monster to sleep, it'll sleep, but then it'll take you a lot longer to get the next one and so on.
Yeah, that makes
sense.
Forth. So you can't chain sleep. Yeah, you don't want that.
Same thing for stuns. If you're playing with a hammer, which, by the way, I noticed that you had KO on your set for some reason. I don't know why that KO is there.
Mainly
the set
because
that I made,
I didn't know whether the stun came from the weapon or came from the fact that you can stun the monsters.
So I guess
again,
we might as well explain.
Sure.
We might as well explain stun real quick. Only blunt weapons can stun. Well, that's not exactly true, but for all intents and purposes, just assume it has to be a blunt hit. So hunting horns will stun. Hammers will stun. Shield bashes from sword and shield will stun. And then there's a couple of special things like Charge Blade has power files that can stun. And Switch Axe, if you are using exhaust files, if I'm not mistaken, that can also stun. So, but you need specific things to get a stun. So if you're bashing at a monster with a greatsword with just slashing attacks, that will never stun. The
Yeah,
monster can like fall down.
I didn't know
but
whether it
it's
meant
not a stun.
Right, that's what I wasn't sure of. It's like, is the fall down considered a stun or not?
No.
I mean, I think I vocalized this when I was looking at it. I was like, I don't know whether this is like a stun/daze mechanic, which I haven't seen with my weapon anyway.
No.
Or is it when it stuns, because it's just called stun.
Yeah.
That's it. So you're like, okay, well, what does this mean? I don't know. I do stun the monsters. So
Which
maybe.
was funny, me equipping that onto like I don't think it was the fireproof mantle. It was probably whatever was the other one that you had equipped that I don't even, no. It had to be the fireproof because Rocksteady.
It was fireproof, yeah.
Yeah. So I put the stun thing in there and I was like, why did he do this? This is
because
worthless.
it just says stun. How are you supposed to know, right?
Yeah.
Because
that was one of the things that confused me as well initially. I was like, I don't know what, can I stun with my weapons? And it's like, no, it's a blunt hit that can stun. So a shield bash or an actual blunt weapon, only those can stun. That's how it works.
So with mounting, I assume this diminishing return also has a reset at some point to make it gets easier if you leave it between big gaps.
If there's a big time gap, I don't know the exact formulas for it, but if there's a big time gap, you kind of like get to do it again and again. But if you're just like constantly attacking the monster, no, it doesn't reset. It just keeps building up, right?
Yeah, because I did mount Alatreon on Alatreon's head.
Yeah, I saw that.
But the more times I tried it after, I was like, oh, I can mount it. It was very awkward to do, though. He just shakes you constantly.
So
the thing is, you have to weave in a couple of attacks.
So mounting is very much a threshold, like you're building up a status ailment. And the way you start triggering the threshold is any aerial attack. So if you notice, whenever I got the mount on Brachydios, I was trying to do a ledge play and I was messing up because I'm not super muscle memory with switch axe. If you go back and you watch the kill that I did, there's a moment where I'm trying to stay in a ledge and you can see me like awkwardly trying to do something. I was trying to bounce back because if you bounce back off a ledge, your character will jump, and then I was going to do an aerial attack. And I was going to repeat that process multiple times to get the mount. And I wasn't able to do it because I'm not familiar with the moveset. Even when I was trying to get it from the sliding, I couldn't get it because the switch axe has to slide a little bit longer than what I'm used to. So I would mess it up all the time. I'm like, I just want to jump. I just want to do the jumping attack. But yeah, the way that you mount.
There's nothing more annoying, right? You jump off a ledge, you come down crashing right on it, and just nothing happens.
Yeah, but it can't happen like that. The thing is, you have to hit it multiple times, and then it will eventually, you'll hit the threshold. But the thing is also, the more aerial damage you'll make, the higher you'll make the threshold go, and the quicker you'll get your mount. But then he gets diminishing returns, so then it will take a lot more times before you get your second mount, and so on and so forth, because otherwise it'd be too overpowered.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was like shocked when I did it back to back. I don't know what caused it. I wasn't even trying to mount again because I was working on the assumption I can't, which is correct.
Were you maybe doing like sliding attacks or something like that, or jumping off a lot of ledges? Yeah.
I couldn't tell you as to exactly what caused that event to happen, but it threw my entire theory, which was the original theory was it has an internal cooldown because otherwise it'd be too powerful because the enemy is completely subservient.
It's more diminishing. It's more diminishing returns, and the mounting mechanics of this game. Like, to give you an idea, in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, which is what they did afterwards, you can straight up control the monster after you mount it, and you can use it to go beat up on other monsters. They just took that mechanic
that's so
fun.
Yeah.
It was completely out there, because it's an experimental title. Yeah. But another thing that you missed with mounting is that you can jump between the different spots.
Oh, I could totally do that. Yeah, I did that a lot.
So, but the thing is, when he's shaking specifically to the spot that you were at when he started shaking. If you're in the tail, right, and he starts shaking, you can jump off somewhere else, and then you can keep going, and then he does it again. You saw me do this at Brachydios. I was just like jumping
I moved around as well, but I didn't know that's why you were doing it. Like if because originally I was like, well, surely I want to stab the head because that's more vulnerable. And then if I was at the tail, I'm like, God, it's going to take me all that time to get up to the head. I'll just do it here. And it seemed to take the same amount of time to actually ground it. So I was like, oh, so it doesn't really matter where I am because when it throws you off, if one of them like bangs you into the wall to throw you off and you clutch back on, it always puts you like on the back or the tail or whatever. So I was like, it doesn't seemingly matter where I do this in terms of time taken to get it to the floor.
It doesn't matter that much where you are doing it. The thing is, you don't have to clutch all the time. You can jump off because the thing when he's like shaking around will only count for the part you were in. So if you're in the tail, he starts shaking.
Jesus.
You can jump to the back, keep going. The other thing though is certain wyverns, particularly brute ones, so like Anjanath, Baroth, they have a move that's a little bit more annoying where even if you jump to a different section, for some reason they just like charge forward, and that one counts for everything. So that one you have to clutch.
Yeah.
And Fatalis also has one of those. So yeah.
Well, I was like, when I got onto Alatreon's head, it never stopped shaking. So I was just holding on to the button phrase. I was like, this thing just never ever stops to let you in. So I was like, oh, maybe you can mount him, but it's kind of going to screw you up because it's a harder boss. That's what I took from that. Is like, oh, I've mounted it and I'm holding on. But in fact, what it's probably saying is like, yeah, he's like crazily shaking the head. Just move to the back and you can attack it. Because I just sat there holding right trigger, like, what is this going to do anything? Like, or let me attack it. Because that's what I've been doing. Every mount is just watching the minimap. If it's red, just hold on. And then when it stopped being red, now we can attack it. And that has worked on every single monster until Alatreon. Every single one.
It's because Alatreon...
I feel griefed.
Alatreon and Fatalis are much harder mounts than all of the other monsters because they're kind of like the end bosses, so they're just harder by the nature of that as well. So tell me more complaints that you have that we can kind of like
they're not complaints, they're things I just don't understand.
Things that you don't understand, because I want you to kind of like lead the discussion, because I know a lot of things that I want to bring up to your attention, but at the same time I want you to be able to ask questions.
Yeah, I mean, I will have questions when they come out. I'm trying to think through the list of things we haven't discovered. Enrage was the big one. Is like, how is this being caused?
Another thing, while we're on the Enrage again, Enrage also changes the attack patterns. I think that's obvious, but there were times today where like Alatreon would be doing the thing and you'd be counting 1, 2, no 3 because he's not enraged. And then when he is enraged,
I
do the
clocked
third
the headbutt
one.
was during enrage. Yeah, and he can't be flashed while enraged either, because I was losing my mind when I was like, just land!
It's not because he's enraged. It's because they've brutally nerfed the efficiency of Flash, because Flash was way too powerful. So to give an idea, I'm sure you fought Kushala Daora. Mm-hmm. So Kushala Daora flies a lot. And so obviously with Monster Hunter players being extremely min-maxy, the easiest way to deal with Kushala Daora was to flash him out of the sky. So people would bring all of the flash pods and then materials to craft flash pods. And every time poor Kushala tried flying, he'd just fall back down and they'd keep abusing him and he'd fall back down. And so Capcom was like, okay, you get 3 flashes, no more. After that, the monster stays airborne. We're done with you guys abusing flashes. And in the case of Alatreon, you can drop him once. That's it. You can only drop him once.
Yeah, I don't think I even got 1 on the try that I got angry, which is why I thought he
might be immune. He might be immune during enrage. I'm not sure.
I think that's what it is, guys. I hadn't used it yet, and it'd been pretty consistent because I had a very strict methodology in how I was tackling that fight towards the end, and it was like, okay, second flash during horn break. That's second air phase during horn break. We want to flash him down. Although I found a way in. To actually bring him down properly and get a weakened phase out of him. But that's the one time I did that, it just didn't work. And I guess I'd gone for probably too many clutches earlier, or wall banged him or something like that, and therefore he was enraged while flying and it didn't work. Because it had been consistent up until that point. So the point where I was very comfy, I'm like, oh, okay, he's got up for the second air phase. I'm going to flash him down now because I've got the horn to break. And he just looked at me and went, no.
But yeah,
no, not happening.
Flash grenades were very much nerfed between World and Iceborne because we were abusing it too much. Like, no monster would get airtime ever because we're just like, yep, flash down.
Yeah, I know. It's even Legiana, you can't chain it. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work anymore. Yeah, they've made it so that you will blind the monster so the monster won't know where you are, but it doesn't matter because they'll still be in the air. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, that totally makes sense. The claw was one.
So while you're thinking, I'll give you another one that you probably should know. I noticed that you wait out whenever you are stunned.
Yeah, I mean, you can spam the left stick
Yeah.
is what it says on the tooltip. Is spam the left stick to
Spam
it.
the left stick and like I think you mash one of the buttons, one of the faceplate buttons, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah,
It just
that's what
says
you're
left
supposed
stick
to
to
do.
get out of it, and I spam the A button. But
Yeah,
I didn't notice much of any
it's
difference.
faster. It's not
Is it
super
technically?
faster,
It
but
can't
it
be
is
that
faster.
much.
It is.
Yeah.
It's enough that sometimes it will save you. So I'm
I
just
mean,
saying
I do
because I
it.
saw
Yeah,
you
I've been
not.
doing that since the start. To be
Oh,
clear,
okay.
I've been doing that since day one.
Because
Yeah,
it seemed
100%.
like you weren't doing it near the end. And I was like, oh, is he just waiting out his stuns? And chat was like,
No,
yep,
no,
he
no, no,
is.
no. I'm not. I'm absolutely not. No, that's just a presumption of failure. No, I'm
Okay.
always spamming the stick.
And
But I did notice compared to gemming it or having steadfast or whatever, it's not even close to the effect that has.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
by
not
the
even
way,
close.
you do know that if you gem 3 stuns, you straight up are immune to stun forever.
Yeah, it says that on the tooltip.
Okay.
Yeah, but it with
'Cause it
a
took
lot
you
of
a while
fights,
to
if I
get
wasn't
the-
regularly getting stunned, it wasn't worth it. For those gem
Yeah.
slots.
Yeah.
It's only if I was like, okay, I think Reggie was the first time I did that because nearly all his attacks could stun me. He was that brutal. He's
Yeah,
just a big ball of
Rajang.
muscle.
Rajang is a
Yeah,
beast.
I think I had steadfast there, but unless it's like an actual, I think I said when I was preparing for fights many times, like let's see how often we're stunned to see whether we need this.
The
'Cause
reason
obviously
I'm
you've got limited gem slots.
Yeah, the reason I'm bringing it up is because it took you quite a while to put like 3 blast resistance, I think, for Raging Brachydios. And it was only at that point that I was like, oh yeah, I can do it with this set. When you put 3 blast, because if you hadn't put 3 blast resist, I was like, nope, not doing it. Not
It was
even
more
trying.
the. I would say I'd come back to this here. Tracking debuffs is not super friendly, like an important debuff, because there's one on Alatreon. I think it's called Dragon Blight. I
Yes.
know it appears above your health bar as a small thing, but with so much going on in a fight you're trying to learn, that could be a little annoying. Like I noticed the blast going on. I guess I'm kind of coming back to my MMO stuff. Is I consider debuffs to be of vital importance, and I have them very prominent and front and center if I'm
Yeah.
debuffed with something.
But
So
here's
I'm
the,
very
here's the
aware of it.
interesting thing that Monster Hunter does. You don't even have to look at the bar. You can see it on your character. So, for instance,
Oh,
if you
probably.
have Blast Blight, you'll notice like sparks coming off of your character all the time. And you'll hear like
boss
almost
era.
popcorn sounds on your character, which is how you can figure out, oh, I still have Blast Blight. So you don't have to look to the thing. You can look to confirm afterwards. And Dragon Blight, there's another one, which is if you have elemental damage on your weapon and you hit the monster, you'll notice that the numbers will have like a blue outline on the number.
Oh, that's what
That
that
means
is.
no
Orange and
elemental
blue.
damage. No. The color orange is different. The blue thing is like an outline. on
Yeah,
the-
I've seen orange with
blue
diagonal
outline?
lines coming out, which is a crit.
yeah.
Grey means you're not doing enough damage or hitting hide or something like that. Like
Yes.
you're just not penetrating the skin. And then there's orange with the blue outline.
Yeah, that means
so
there's
I
no
figured
elemental
there's
damage.
something going. That's what it is. There's no
Yeah.
elemental damage because I
So-
just nullified myself to that mechanic entirely because I was not going to track it. I just made myself immune to.
Oh
Dragon
yeah,
Blight
yeah.
straight away.
That's the way to do it for Alatreon specifically because he's got so many blights to begin with that you don't want to be dealing with that anyways. Because he can also like mess up with your stamina with frost and do all of these things. So going blight resist for Alatreon is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, I just didn't want to bother with it at all. I was whatever because it just said it nullifies your elemental damage, and I was all in. I think I had capped ice attack, so I was like, I'm not dealing with having to nullbury or whatever throughout this. That is not happening. So I just was like, all right, immune that straight away. That was from Brachydios as well. I was like, I'm just not dealing with these debuffs. Whatever, move on with my life.
Brachydios is the right choice because doing Brachydios without full blast resistance is it's just a nightmare.
The amount of clips of me like, okay, we're moving to the next area. I'm like preparing.
Yeah, I
I
saw
like
it.
call a bigger wasp, and I'm like, right, we're all set, and then I just go poof, and I lose half my health, and I'm like, bro,
I saw
I am
you
so
die
ready
it.
to go, and you just blow up, and I'm like, god damn it, bro, like I have to start again now, and I'm just sat on my own in the forest like some pig, just chugging all these potions and blowing up on my own, and nothing's even happening. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm done with this. I can't be bothered with it. I'm totally not doing it. I thought I'd ran into a bomb, because I can't remember the name of the monster that drops bombs as it goes. Like Basil does that. Like drops bombs as he goes.
You're talking about Jay Leno, also known as
Yeah, the
Rurikhan.
chin. Yeah, Jimmy the Chin. He
Rurikhan.
drops Yeah. Oh, Uruguay. That's right. Yeah, Uruguay does it. Where he drops the bombs. And I was like, have I walked into a bomb or something? Or did he drop an explosive pool as he was going? And then I was like, oh, it's got to be a blast thing. Okay, yeah, let's just immune this and not deal with it at all. Because one of the biggest realizations you come to while playing this game is having to heal is the biggest downtime in the game. By a long way. Like, if you're used to potion and mega potion, I've switched now to max potions almost exclusively because that amount of downtime is unbelievable and leaves you wide open to so many attacks.
So, let me tell you what it was like back in the days of old, in the olden Monster Hunter. It used to be like this. You'd drink your potion and you'd instantly get the healing, but after drinking the potion, the animation would continue, your character would store the potion, and then he would go like, he would flex.
Oh, yeah.
He'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm fully healed. And then the monster would just like trample you while you're flexing. So they've always wanted there to be like a commitment to drinking the potion.
Yeah, at least, I mean, it's just fair. You shouldn't be able to just instant heal all the time. Like, even max potions have a commitment, and they're resource a little heavy, but not too bad these days because I think, the capped amount of things I can harvest, so I'm able to produce them kind of. You know, I progressed all day today spamming max potions, and I still have a lot left.
Yeah,
it's not a big deal.
Steamworks kind of makes consumables not really be that big of a deal if you do Steamworks regularly. So yeah, that's kind of one of the ways of dealing with it.
Mm-hmm. I've done them on cooldown. Well, whenever it says it's naturally full, because I haven't been out farming ore or anything to keep, chungusing it up and getting it done. But the Steamworks has actually been not too bad. I hated it at first because I didn't know it could autoplay. So when I got a decree from my team who came in and said the chat would really like you to do Steamworks, and I sat there for about 5 minutes individually pressing every button over and over again, and then the cats came on and they were telling me what to press, and then it was going into overdrive. I was there for ages, and I was just like, this is horrible. I'm not doing this ever again. And then it was like, oh, you can just hold right trigger and it'll just do it for you. And you can 10x it, so it takes way less time to get through this. And I was like, oh, it's just free resources. Okay, that works.
There's the 10x thing didn't come until later. So there were actually things where, for instance, me and friends, we would farm a bunch to get a bunch of resources into it. And then we'd like, because you can also do it with spacebar. So we'd put something on top of spacebar and we'd walk away from the game and it'd just be like doing it for ages because we couldn't 10x it at the beginning. So yeah.
I think they've been quite generous with the resources because they've got a lot of them. Yeah. I actually like it, especially when you've got the rest of the fertilizers and things like that. Is you're producing things in hundreds. And you're good for age. I mean, if I could go through as much prog as I've done in the last few days without having to be like, oh, we need to go and go to a zone and just run around and farm, totally okay with that. Like,
usually the bottleneck that I've always found for World was the gourmet vouchers, which is why I would always whenever I was streaming and there happened to be somebody else on my lobby, I'm like, okay, guys, who's paying for dinner today? Okay, who's
okay?
The gourmet vouchers work. Gourmet vouchers work for everyone. So I would wait for someone to use a gourmet voucher, then I would go get my food buffs.
Before we get into this, I think on some days, and if these people were doing this, I bless you from the bottom of my heart that I had no idea what you were doing. But we had a lot of, once we did some multiplayer when we needed a new gear set, right? We multiplayed that.
Yeah.
And people just hung out in the lobby. And I was really confused. And then they were like, we're playing together because it's members of the stream, right? They're all hunting together. I think some of them were desperately trying to time by watching the stream when I was coming out or died or whatever to use a gourmet voucher for me for my benefit.
Yeah.
And then I noticed that I would get a food buff and then it would say blah, blah, blah has activated a gourmet voucher. And I didn't know what it did. So I'm like, I'm really sorry for whoever was like spamming those to try and get me a buff. And I just skipped it because I ran straight there.
The best part is like people spamming gourmet vouchers for you. And you're just like, yep, chef's choice.
The food thing, man. The food. Do you know you can't find out what those cat things are unless you choose a custom platter, then press select. It tells you nowhere else.
Yeah.
It's insane. It doesn't tell you because some of them are really important, like permanent food buff after you die, an extra res. All those things are really important, and it won't tell you what they are unless you deselect a food type, go up to an empty slot and then check the tooltips. If you
And-
just go to check cat tooltips, it only tells you the ones you get from food input. Why? Why not just have both of them on the goddamn screen?
Food
It's
is complicated.
baffling.
Okay, food is complicated, Mike. You think
Why?
that's bad? You should see what it was like in Generations Ultimate with us trying to figure out, okay, so I need a piece of meat, I need a piece of fish, and then I need some cheese to top it off, and that will give me the buff that I want. It is, and trust me, World is actually not even that complicated. World is actually quite simple. Rise and Sunbreak, even more simple. But yes, it's still very complicated for a newcomer. It's not easy. It was very funny when you started obsessing over the fact that in my kill I had feline foodie, because you in your mind you're probably thinking, oh, he knows what he's doing, he activated it. It's luck. It's luck.
Wait, that's what I asked you earlier. You can't force that because somebody
Feline foodie, no. There are some skills that you can force. So Moxie, which is
Right.
the one that I got that gave me guts, which is whenever you get hit at a certain threshold, which is the triangles thing that you're like, why does he have triangles on his health bar? That's the threshold.
Yeah.
So the thing is, when I have those triangles on my health bar, if I get one shot, I don't actually die. You can't use it to survive Eschaton Judgment before you start thinking about that. Doesn't
I
work.
don't know what that is.
Eschaton Judgment's the room-wide AoE from Alatreon.
Oh, where do you
You
learn the
can't-
spell names?
They say it in the game.
Who? Where?
I don't remember. I think the characters say it's Eschaton Judgment.
No. He says he's preparing a powerful attack. I heard it a lot of times.
Yeah, but it's called Eschaton Judgment, basically.
Okay.
And you can't use guts to survive Eschaton Judgment. But
No, I noticed the cat doesn't work on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way that it works with guts is so long as you get hit and your health is higher than the triangles, you will never die in one hit. But if
Okay.
your health is below the triangles, then
Yeah,
you can
you'll
die.
die.
So there's a threshold at which you can do it. That's Moxie. So Moxie you can force. Foodie you can't because it's what they call a daily food skill. So daily food skills change. Sometimes there's Feline Defender. Sometimes there's not Moxie. Sometimes there's the one that you like, the Foodie. Sometimes there'll be other things there. But basically
Well,
those
I
are
like
daily.
foodie for prog.
Yeah,
I know I'm gonna
exactly.
die, yeah.
Foodie is one of the best ones, obviously. But those are daily skills, which means they reset between attempts. So you might
Yeah, I
get
saw that.
foodie, you might not get foodie. So it was funny for me to see you like being, oh, he knows what he's doing. It's clearly something that he intended to have for when he died. It's like, nope, it was luck.
Yeah. Because you chose
blind
very
luck.
specific. You chose very specific ingredients, and I thought, well, you would think he would have because you can set loadouts for it, right? You can have your favorite menu.
Yeah.
So I was like,
didn't,
okay,
I didn't
you
have a
must be choosing
loadout.
something specific for this.
I didn't have a loadout because I never farmed it like that. So I was just like, oh, I want Moxie, so just in case I get one shot, I won't die. And I wanted it to be vegetables because I just wanted more elemental resistance. That's it. Because if you eat vegetables, it's elemental resistance. If you eat fish,
Yep.
it's defense. And if you eat meat, it's offense. That's it.
Yeah, I got that by messing around with it. What does beer do then?
The beer is something that was introduced with Iceborne, and there's a couple of different things. It depends on which ones you use. I don't know all of them because a lot of them are based around gathering and additional endemic life spawning and stuff like that. But the most important one is the red beer. If you collect all the ingredients for the red beer and you use 6 red beers, you get an extra cart. It's called Feline Insurance.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Because I didn't notice that when I was messing around with ingredients, I noticed like if I added this, it changed like the cat buff. I did this. I wasn't going to start spreadsheeting them all out, obviously.
But considering
but the
that
beer
you
didn't
had
do anything.
Considering that you had players in your lobby, most likely you always had access to all the food buffs because it's shared. So like if you're playing by yourself, you only have access to the food buffs that you've unlocked. But if somebody unlocked all of the food buffs and they're in your lobby, you get to use all of the food buffs. It's like a
That's
multiplayer
fair.
perk. Yeah. But
I don't think I'm missing many. Probably a couple because they come from the optional quest, right? I don't.
Yeah,
I
they come
honestly
from the
don't
option.
know.
Not just optional quests. There are some that will be like I don't know if you've ever noticed in maps. Sometimes it'll say, "Oh, there's an upsurge of this thing in the map," like upsurge of fossils or something like that. Whenever one of those things happens, that means that likely you can find a rare material if you go hunt that specific type of resource. And if you hunt, some of those rare materials will give you access to an additional food buff, or a new food ingredient, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
not done that.
the way that the buffs work is that it's either 2s, 4s, or 6s. So, like, if you use 2 blues, that's one buff. If you use 4 blues, that's a different buff. If you use 6 blues, that's Moxie. And so,
Gotcha.
yeah. But it obviously, if you're a new player, you're not going to understand exactly which ones you need or whatever. If you just want to be offensive, you want to use all meat. And in your case, I don't know, probably I would go 4 reds for mounting, because it gives you additional mounting damage. So not additional damage, it's more threshold to the mounting, so that you would proc mounting faster. So if you,
Okay.
I think it's 4 reds. I don't remember the buffs all by head, but usually in most weapons I would run 4 reds so that I would mount faster and I wouldn't have to like do as many jumping attacks to mount. But yeah, there's
Yeah, I
a
mean,
bunch
going
of
back to
different
what we said
ones.
earlier, that's generally what they want the community to figure out, right? They put in a bunch of combinations,
Yeah.
and through community discussion, that'd figure it out.
I mean, they tell you exactly what each combination does, though. In the
yeah,
game.
they do for those. Yes, they do
Yeah.
tell you that, and that's why I was trying to manipulate the daily ones to try and get the food one or something
Random.
along those
I mean,
lines.
you can manipulate them. Let's say you find a gathering quest that is super easy to do and that you can do really fast, and you go and you do that gathering quest, and it will reset. So you can keep doing it, and then eventually you get the food buffs that you want. But only speedrunners probably do that, and if they want to do that, they can probably just mod that in, which a lot of them do. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Yeah, that works. Okay, I have to ask. I know it's bothering me. How do you survive Eschaton Judgment?
Okay.
Because it's killing my soul.
Okay, we'll talk about Alatreon then. So first, I need you to watch something.
Okay.
I need you to watch this clip. I just linked it to you. And if you could put this stream in a way that people can watch your reaction to it,
Sure.
because I'm sure your chat will appreciate this. See, chat, I'm looking out for you guys.
This is there's a comment here by the handler which I didn't hear at all today, which was, "You're doing a good job doing the elemental power." I remember this try. So to give context to what we're looking at here, I got fed up with trying to attack the head because it was very awkward with him bobbing up and down and stuff. So I just decided to start whacking away at a leg, and then it said, "You're doing a good job." So I was like, "Oh, we don't actually need to attack the horns to contain the elemental power," which is why I was surprised. I actually got a shocked face on my React Andy camera right now. Oh! Oh! Yeah, I was watching to the end.
Okay.
Is that right? Well,
Yeah, 'cause his horns aren't
damaged. Would you looky here?
Alatreon's readying a big attack. Get your healing items ready.
Yeah, and this is the one that barely did anything to me because I had half health going into it. So it's something to do with knocking him over. Yeah, it barely touched me. Oh, it did kill me, but
I could have survived
yeah,
that.
Yeah, I could have survived that.
You could have survived it. Exactly.
So it's something
that's
to do
the
with
point.
knocking him over?
So the way that it works is Alatreon has multiple phases, as I'm sure you've figured out by now. And the reason you use ice is because he starts with fire.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's the opposing element. That's what's going to deal the most damage for the topple that you're talking about is going to be ice. You can do the damage with other elements, with the exception of fire, because if he's in fire, he's immune to fire. So that makes sense. So all of the other elements can trigger the topple, but the most efficient one is going to be ice. Now, if he happens to switch to ice mode, then it's the reverse. So you'd want to have the fire one. So the way that it works is, first you need to get one topple. That's your first priority, which is why when you stopped attacking the head, that was the best thing you could have done. Because when you're waiting for the openings for the head, you don't have enough uptime.
Yeah.
So once you get more uptime by just attacking him, you're going to trigger that topple, which is a massive opening for damage. And on top of it, that is what triggers Eschaton dealing less damage. It becomes healable. And you can topple it more than once. I believe you can topple it up to 3 times, but realistically, you'll be able to achieve 2 if you play really well. If you're like an excellent player, you might get 3. I've heard of people getting 3. I think I might have gotten 3 once, which I was like surprised. I was like, oh, I didn't even know you could get 3. But if you get 3, Eschaton Judgment deals like almost no damage. You can almost just
Yeah.
sit there and do nothing. So that's how Eschaton Judgment works. You have to trigger the topple. Now, the problem with this is that in the beginning he's in fire phase, but then when he starts charging up and he does like a big red AoE, then he swaps the dragon. When he swaps the dragon, he's not as weak to ice anymore, which makes it harder for you to topple him.
So it's in fact, I did it the opposite way then, is because there's nothing mentioned in the game or from the handler about this.
They tell you use elemental damage. They tell you deal elemental damage.
Yeah, to break the horns.
No, not to break the horns. They just tell you deal elemental damage. And then when he shifts into dragon mode, they tell you break the horns, because once he shifts to dragon, that's when you can break the horns. During the fire phase, I think you actually can't break the horns during fire phase. So the idea is you hit him with ice a bunch of times until he falls over with the topple, and at that point you're safe. You're not going to die from Eschaton Judgment anymore. If you're able to get 2 topples, Eschaton Judgment is even easier to survive. And then when he gets into the dragon phase, then you want to break the horn. And now you're like, why do I need to break the horn, right? Because if you don't break the horn, he's going to swap to ice element, and then you're screwed because you have an ice weapon.
Yeah. I got that part.
And at that point, you won't be able to hit the elemental threshold to survive the next Eschaton Judgment because he's immune to ice. So the idea is...
surprised. It's a DPS race from the start until the dragon. Because I read it as a DPS race. The way I understood from the wording, which is obviously my misinterpretation of what it does, is you need elemental damage to do... I thought the elemental damage is what damaged the head.
No.
And caused the horns to break. That's what I interpret it as. So a lot of the stuff I did today was like just working the head, and I was like, I'm going to work on the legs a little bit, but the horns are coming, so I've kind of got to work on the horns to get that done. And obviously, my sensibilities are, can he not be toppled via head damage?
Yes, but you don't have as much uptime, so you're not dealing as much damage. Because you're waiting for the openings to hit the head when there's way more openings to hit the legs.
I guess I just had low damage overall then.
Yes, you absolutely have low damage. Like, let me tell you something else, and I know that your chat is going to be upset at me for saying this. Your gear sucks for this fight.
Because I got some pulls where I definitely did what I would consider for my progress on that fight a decent chunk of damage, right? I'm talking like multiple ZSDs into his weakened front legs because they're a weak spot. I had them weakened. I had some pulls where I was like, I've done some really good damage here and some really good combo swings. And he never fell over today. But I definitely was working on the head a bit more because that's obviously more damage in certain opportunities. Not to say I had perfect uptime. I'm not going to claim that. Yeah. But definitely some pulls where I was like, the damage was pretty good here. I think we're on track. Like, you know, and he never fell over.
So to give you an idea, by the time people get to Alatreon, before we got to Alatreon the very first time, we had been grinding endgame for months, like literal months we had been grinding for endgame. So most of us at the time had augmented gear. That means, for instance, there's an augment for your gear called health regen. And what that does is whenever you hit the monster, you leech life.
So beyond the red bar?
Yes. You can straight up heal yourself to full by attacking the monster. It's not like super overpowered, not like Diablo levels of lifesteal.
But it stops you running off and healing, though.
Yeah, exactly. If you're playing well, you can kind of like make up for it, and depending on the weapon that you have, you can get like good chunks of health back whenever you are hitting the monster. So we had augments, but the augments don't just do that because augments are customizable. Think of them almost like sockets. So you can have health regen, and then you can have attack up, and then you can have affinity, and we put all of this stuff into our weapons to deal additional damage. On top of it, by the time we got to Alatreon, we would have much better decorations than the ones you have. Like, your decorations are not that great. You're using tier 1 decorations in tier 4 slots and stuff like that, right? So obviously your gear is not that great. Now, is that the defining factor? Is that something like, oh, it's not doable with this gear? No, it's definitely doable with the gear that you have, particularly because you already went in and you're like, okay, I want to maximize my frost damage. So I think you're running like frost attack up 4 or 6 or something like that.
I took one out.
So if you took one out, then you got like 5. So you're running frost damage 5. You're running Frostfang Barioth's weapon, which has tons of elemental damage to begin with. And so you can definitely hit the threshold. Like that's
Oh, I
definitely
did. I've done it
doable.
once.
Yeah. No, but I'm
done it
saying
once,
you
yeah.
you can hit it consistently without struggling too much if you just stop attacking the head during the fire phase. I mean, attack the head. I'm just saying, don't just attack the head. Like, just get more uptime in. So you can do it, but it's hard because you just don't have that much damage. See, whereas your set has like whatever skills you have on there, which at this point I don't know, but you have like the main ones, which is the blight resistance, very important. You have elemental damage, also very important. But what you don't have afterwards is just straight up raw damage. But then again, you've been breaking the horns pretty consistently, which is something that was like my biggest struggle for Alatreon with the gun lance. I struggled.
Well, I noticed that wall banging kind of guarantees the break.
It
So
doesn't.
it's not 100%, but
Yeah,
it needs only a
but
couple of
deals-
hits after
yeah.
that to do it. Yeah,
It
it does
deals
a
a ton of-
significant portion of that. So what I was the way I did it towards the latter half of the day is I focused on doing head damage, even though it had greater downtime. But it's because on the legs, etc., you could see there was a multiples of difference in terms of damage output. So if I was like damaging even a weakened leg, I might see 130, something like that, but often sort of 50, 60. And a head hit would be 200 to 300 plus. So I was like, there's a trade-off in my mind when I was working it out of like, how much damage am I doing? I'm not hitting as often, obviously, on the head, but I'm doing maybe 3x damage is how I was swinging.
It deals a ton of damage to the head, absolutely, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee the break. It's just damage to the head will guarantee the break at some point. But yeah, that's kind of like the only thing that you're missing. Now, to give you some more feedback on this, like, because I see a lot of people like, oh, he's clueless, blah, blah, blah. I see your chat just
for
like
sure.
making fun of you the whole time. I think that what your chat is forgetting is that even Kanta, who is one of the best Monster Hunter players out there, struggled for hours with this monster with much more optimized sets than what you have and with many more years of experience in the series than you have. So I think people are forgetting just how hard this monster was when it came out. To give even more context into the situation, this monster single-handedly caused the review bomb on the game. Because people couldn't kill it, so they went to the Steam forums to cry, and they review bombed the game over this monster. And then they review bombed it again when Fatalis came out. So
Most of my
this is not an
mockers
easy
are
monster
on
to
the
kill.
ride. No, most of my mockers, at least I tell myself this at night. Most of the people who are like Pepe laughing at me are like, they know that I'm all right and I'm having fun, and it will crack it at some point. I often, and this is a great example of this, is I will get lost in the weeds looking for a gimmick or a mechanic, especially if I think the game's dialogue is pointing me in that direction. Because obviously my interpretation was the elemental damage is required to break the horns, right? That's how I took it. And then we've broken the horns, and then it was like, great, you can't switch to ice. And I was so lost because I'm like, but it still just kills me in fire. Like, what is the point in this? It's like, you've got to contain his elemental power. And I'm like, I am fucking doing that, bro. I'm smashing his head up to pieces, and he still just kills me. And I'm assuming resistance has no effects against this attack, because the way I ended up doing it was fireproof cloak would resist gems. And I was like, is this dragon damage, even though it's clearly fire or ice?
No.
Yeah, I was like, is it clear? Is it
You're not
dragon
meant to
damage or
survive
something?
it in any way unless you trigger the topple. If you don't trigger the topple, you are meant to die.
I would
Now-
never have linked the topple as the marker to make that happen.
They even say it. You've successfully contained his elemental damage.
They did say that.
Yeah.
They did. They did say that. I didn't. That's why I shouldn't go back and watch the VOD, which is something recommended to me earlier. But I was kind of in my head. Yes, stubbornness, obviously.
Yep.
But also, like, if it happened then, it's going to happen again, and I'll see something that's going to cause it to be that way. Because I remember I was riding a high when it actually people will be like, "Why don't you remember how he did it?" I did remember that we did something where I didn't take much damage from it. And what I tried to think of is I kept it in ice phase somehow after breaking the horn, which has contained the power because we used the ice weapon. And that means its ice power is diminished, which is why I was looking to timings to break the horn, is how I went down the road. I was like, maybe if we break it late, it won't be able to change or whatever, and it uses this form. Something along those lines. And at no point did I link it to the topple because I was just expecting it to fall over at some point due to damage, which it never did. And I was like, oh, well, I'm not working the legs as much, so that makes sense. Maybe the legs are what causes it to fall over to get a damage window, but I could also get damage windows from its flying, and I can get them from a headbang, because initially I did the first full day thinking you couldn't headbang it at all. I did it by accident today, thankfully earlier, because I tried headbanging. I was like, oh, he's not enraged. I'll see if I can. And he span. I was like, cool, he can headbang. And then I sent him off, and he just ran, and then he just turned around. I was like, oh, okay.
It's because it's tricky to land those in the
I know now.
tiny walls. Yeah.
I know now. It's quite interesting. It's the topple that causes that, though. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and if you,
I would not have put 2 and 2 together.
And again, you can topple it more than once, which will weaken it even more. Now, I'll tell you another thing while we're at it. There's an item that you can buy called Astera Jerky, which they tell you...
I have that.
Yeah, they usually tell you about Astera Jerky for Odogron because of the bleed. I think that's when they teach you about Astera Jerky.
Yeah.
But what Astera Jerky does is it recovers your red health. It doesn't just remove bleed. It removes bleed and recovers your red health. So,
I thought it was a healing bonus.
You can wait until like you're about to die, and if you pop it at the right time, it'll just fill up your health all in one go, because all of that damage initially is just red damage. It doesn't take the red away. So Astera Jerky is one of the most powerful healing items for Eschaton Judgment.
Okay, on that note then, we kind of self-answered this, because the tick should be slower if he's been toppled.
Yes.
So a lot of what I was doing today was trying to find the exact sound cue to pop a max potion. Is Astera Jerky faster? It wouldn't actually matter because because it'd be a slower tick anyway.
Astera Jerky is just cheaper, I guess. If you want to use a max potion, it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. That's what I was timing, but because it was ticking down so fast, I was like, this can't be this precise.
The reasoning is you can save the max potion for actual heals during the fight, and then you have the Astera Jerky to survive Eschaton. Usually the way that I do it is I time the Astera Jerky when my health is about a little bit below half or something, and then you pop the Astera Jerky, and after that I usually still drink a potion just to make sure that I'm fully topped off. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't even use max potions usually during Eschaton Judgment, because you save the max potions for the actual fight when you're fighting.
It was the only thing I thought of that could heal me to full. Obviously, I didn't know how Jerky worked, so it was like either that or an ancient potion. But I had such a small window.
You're not meant to survive unless you topple it at least once. You're supposed to die.
Yeah, I was like, I was definitely a case of like, all right, I've broken the horns. This makes no sense to me because it's not stopping this thing that's happening to me. How do we survive this? I know at some point I did survive it, but I don't know why. But now it gives me a totally new... Because I was actually saving damage until Dragon Phase. So, because I was like holding back and just like
that's
weakening
when you
lose
you lose damage when you get the Dragon Phase, because you don't deal as much elemental damage. Now, you want to know something that frustrates me a lot in this fight is the fact that Capcom wants you to use elemental damage, but strangely enough, raw damage still deals more damage than elemental damage, which is stupid.
I tried that because I was like, I got sick and tired of the elemental thing not working, so I was like, I'm getting my blast weapon.
It deals more damage. It will deal more damage straight up.
Oh, interesting.
But it won't trigger the topple. That's the thing. It won't trigger the topple.
Oh, the topple only comes from elemental damage.
The topple is the reason why you want elemental damage. It's the only reason why you want elemental damage is the topple. Because for everything else, a raw damage weapon is better. So when Alatreon came out, and once I kind of understood how the fight worked, and I learned what was the fastest way for me to proc the topple, I would straight up tell people, look, if you don't want to bring an elemental weapon, you don't have to. I will solo the threshold on a 4-man party, and I could do that because I knew how to do it. So people would come in with blast weapons, and those would be the fastest Alatreon kills that we do, because I'd just be like, I wouldn't even do that much damage. I'd just be triggering the topple. Once he toppled, everybody's just like just mauling him down with blast weapons.
I mean, that also was confusing because in the tooltips of the game, I think I got a lot of my comments that it's a bad translation. It does call blast an element.
Yes,
in all the tooltips, it tells you that blast is an element, and it's like it's not an element. But in the game, it tells you it's an element. Like on all the things,
it's not really. I don't know if it's a translation error, or maybe Japanese just don't read element the same way that we do or whatever. But it's kind of like, here's the thing that's associated with your weapon. And then you have the 5 elements, which is frost, fire, water, dragon, and what am I forgetting? I always forget one for some reason, but whatever. There's 5 of them. And then there's the ailments, which is poison, paralysis, sleep, blast. And again, I might be forgetting something, but those things, the ailments, are not elemental. They're ailments, which is why they work in a different way, like we talked about, with them proccing after a certain amount of hits, after you hit a certain threshold, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, if you need elemental damage, it's just the 5 elements, which also includes dragon.
Yeah,
Dragon's kind of like
Dragon's supposed to be just a special extra one.
So
yeah, it was strange. I did know now that it's not an element. It's just in the weapon and everywhere it says element. Blast is an element, is what it tells you in the game.
Yeah, dragon is it is an element, but it's kind of like a mysterious element in the lore of the game and all of that stuff, because usually you would get dragon weapons later down in the game, but the idea is that the dragon weapons relate somewhat to the elder dragons, and in this game, what dragon can do is it has this thing called Elder Seal, which can
what the hell is Elder Seal? Because why is it called Affinity? It's crit. Just call it crit. You're not special.
We'll talk about Affinity. Listen, Elder Seal is different from Affinity. Relax. Okay, so Elder Seal...
Oh, I know it's different, but yeah, I don't know.
What Elder Seal does is usually each Elder Dragon will have like a special ability. So, for instance, Kushala Daora gets that stupid, annoying wind thing around him that you come close to him and then you get bounced off. Right?
Yeah, it's very irritating.
If Elder Seal procs, that thing goes away. Teostra has the thing where he's constantly like powering up and then eventually he releases a Nova.
Oh, come on.
If Elder Seal procs, you kind of like bump down his power level a little bit and you take away his power. So yeah, that's what Elder Seal does. It seals the special abilities of the Elder Dragons.
I knew it was something Elder Dragon related.
It is super unreliable. Even Elder Seal High oftentimes can be very frustrating, but below High, it's almost like I don't even count that it's there. I do like the one on Nergigante weapons because I used to play Nergigante Charge Blade a lot, which is just like a big beat stick. And so I would get like the occasional extra flinch because of the Elder Seal, because when Elder Seal procs, the monster goes like, ugh. It like staggers a little bit. So it's just like an additional stagger on top of the impact files that I already had, so it was really good. But yeah, that's what Elder Seal does.
Yeah, I never played around it because I didn't know what it did. I knew it was Elder Dragon related.
It's just for Elder
bonus
Dragons.
damage or something like that. Because it was the only other thing in the game called Elder. I was like, it's something to do with the dragons, but whatever it is, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just usually every Elder Dragon will have a special power. That thing will kind of mitigate that special power in some way. So in the case of Valhazak, it nullifies like his putrid aura or whatever, stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, the effluvia, yeah.
Yeah, the effluvia stuff.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun mechanic.
I mean, every Elder Dragon has to have its own mechanic. That's why they're called Elder Dragons. Like, you know that Kirin is an Elder Dragon, right?
Yeah, it did annoy me that there were certain things qualified. I was like,
it's a
are you guys?
Horse that's an
are you
Elder
going
Dragon?
to school? It's like you come out with your little Elder Dragon certificate because you're not a dragon. Like, I'm sorry, pal. Like, you're.
You fight an arch-tempered Kirin. You'll see that he's as powerful as a dragon. Kirin's
he's powerful. Don't get me wrong. He's not a dragon. It's just like he's getting his little badge. He can have a badge.
Elder Dragon is basically what the guild calls whatever they don't know what it is. So it's like, oh, we know that Rathalos is a flying wyvern. We know that Baroth is a brute wyvern. Kirin, we don't know what the hell that thing is. That thing's dangerous, murders everybody. We don't want to mess with. That's an Elder Dragon.
So stamp it. There you go. It's on his passport. If your papers, please, dragon. Done.
That's the way that it goes for the classification of that stuff.
I just checked see if it can be trapped or not, and that's how I know.
Yeah, you can't trap Elder Dragons.
Yep. Yeah, Elder Dragon. Can't be trapped, Elder Dragon. Reggie, not an Elder Dragon. Can trap him. He's no good.
But see, it's funny
Reggie.
Because then whenever you have the new players, you can tell them like, oh yeah, you should totally capture that Teostra for extra rewards.
Oh, that's mean. That's really mean.
I've never done that.
Yeah, it's like, in fact, if you do Lunestra and Teostra and capture them both, you get a mega weapon. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly. There you go.
You do that one. Yeah, it's a really cool weapon. You should do that. It's so fun. Yeah, enjoy yourself. No way. No way. That's Affinity then. It's just crit.
Affinity is basically crit.
Yeah.
And I think your chat was telling me that you were running crit boost without having Affinity. That's a terrible idea. People were telling me that. I don't know if you were or not. I'm saying like every now and then I'd go in and read chat a little bit. They'd be like, "Oh, Mike is using crit boost without Affinity," and I'm just like, "Ooh, that's a terrible idea." Usually, you want to have around 80% crit, give or take, before you even put a point in crit boost, because otherwise, it's more valuable to just put into crit. So Affinity Affinity is a 1.25 multiplier. So it's 25% more damage.
Then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if you put critical boost on top of that, it'll be an additional 5% per critical boost point, and you can take that up to 40% additional damage. It's low, but it's still the most valuable source of damage in the whole game, pretty much. Even
including elemental. Can elemental damage
elemental damage
is it rolled into the main number?
Elemental damage sucks. That's why.
Is it a separate value? How is it calculated?
What I mean,
elemental versus raw. Is it rolled into one and then multiplied on top of that, or is it multiplies the raw with the? See, this is the stuff I really like. It's like, how are they mathing it out?
So the thing is, you remember when I told you earlier about movement values? So there's a movement value for raw damage, which is based on the specific move that you're doing and the sharpness level of the weapon, which is brought into the equation as well. And then there's a separate calculation done for the elemental portion. I don't actually think that normal affinity even buffs your critical damage that much.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the way that it is you in Monster Hunter World specifically, because that's the thing, they change the formulas all the time. In Monster Hunter World specifically, elemental damage just kind of sucks. It's not particularly good unless you are playing certain weapons. So the idea with elemental damage is the faster your weapon is, the more benefit you can take from elemental damage. In your case, you're using the switch axe. You can also take more benefit because amped state has some strange relationship with elemental damage that also benefits a bunch from that. If you are using a file that is an elemental file, which I actually don't know what type of file Frostfang Barioth is. Because if you notice, your weapons, all of them have files. Like, I'm pretty sure that Raging Brachydios will be a power file. So that's just straight physical damage. If you do an exhaust file, that's kind of like stun and sleep and stuff like that. And if you do an elemental file, that will deal more elemental damage. And that kind of, I think, makes it worth it for the Switch X, because that's a whole nother thing. Depending on the weapon that you play, you can tell whether or not elemental damage is worth it. So, for instance, Greatsword, elemental damage is worthless. Greatsword is just like big raw damage because it's a slow weapon. Hammer, it can be both ways, because Hammer has that move where you slide and it does like the spinning bludgeon thing. So if you're doing a lot of spinning bludgeon, element can kind of work, but most people that play Hammer just go raw damage. They don't care. Dual blades, definitely elemental damage. Elemental damage is goated for dual blades. So for dual blades, definitely want that. But again, it depends on the speed of the weapon. The faster the weapon is, the better you will deal with elemental damage.
Okay.
And then there's also like elemental crit, which is separate, because I think is it critical elemental critical boost or whatever it is. There's some skill in there, because like some of these skills change and whatnot, and usually I don't mess with elemental too much, but yeah, there's specific skills that will also increase the critical of elemental. But I believe that the more experienced people that really dive deep into the numbers have always said, yeah, it's not really worth it that much in World. It is worth it though in Rise and Sunbreak, where you'd be able to do something like an elemental charge blade would deal upwards of 1,000 damage per file, which file is like every time you do this special attack called Super Amped Elemental Discharge, you'd unload like 10 of them. So you can do like 10,000 damage in one hit, which is
very
just
cool.
like, so you could go like, boom, and just like murder something. There's a weapon in World that you can do something like that, which is a weapon that comes from Kol Taroth, the strong ice, whatever. They have it's a weapon that just has tons of ice damage, and you can use that weapon and you use Super Amped Elemental Discharge on a monster that's weak to ice, and you will delete it from existence. But again, usually elemental damage in World is very edge cases, so for the most part, you don't tend to use it all that much.
Yeah, I wonder if that's why they went with Alatreon having all these elemental things. If people
exactly
dodging it, they usually build bosses like that because what people aren't taking advantage
Exactly,
of the things
yeah.
we've made. Yeah, that makes sense from a dev point of
But
view as to why it's like that.
The thing is, elemental damage still sucks because you can still deal more damage with raw damage on Alatreon, which is one of the things that I was so pissed off.
Yeah, it totally makes sense because you find often when they bring things like this in, is like, you weren't utilizing some resource we gave you.
Yeah.
So now we're going to make you care about it.
We're going to force you.
We're going to force you to care about it because otherwise we're pissed off that you're not using some of the things we've made for you. So now we want you to try those things because you're all using raw, smarky weapons and just boshing everything in the face. And that's not what we want from you.
See, and that's the thing. I've always been the type of player that I love aligning myself with the element that is opposite of the monster. So I'm like, oh, this monster is weak to fire. I'm going to go and hunt a bunch of monsters to go make like a fire set. And then I'm going to bring my big fire set and bonk you down. But yeah, usually if you just go for raw, that's usually the best optimal way for 90% of the weapons, unfortunately.
Okay.
Now,
other question.
There's another thing about affinity. Affinity can be negative, which you've noticed. Certain weapons have negative affinity.
Yeah, certain weapons start on negative. Yeah.
What happens with that is there's a chance that you will deal a negative crit, which is 25% less damage on your attack.
Oh, that's mean.
Yep.
That's really mean. Like, when I read that, it means that you're going to need to get a base amount of 20 before you can start critting. That's
yeah,
what
exactly.
I'm
but you also get negative crit, which I don't know if I've seen you do that or not. But yeah, there's if you notice sometimes if you gotten one of those, the way that it shows up is you'll hit the monster and then there will be like a little red underscore under the damage number. That means you've gotten a negative crit.
That'd be very early game that I had a weapon with. I think one of the ones I went with was like 0. I did the bone weapon for a long time, which apparently annoyed a lot of people.
A lot of bone weapons have negative affinity, so yes, that would make sense.
Yeah, they were very bothered by my sharpness.
But the thing is, in older games, and even I think in Rise and Sunbreak, there are skills where if you hit a negative crit, then there's a chance that you'll hit like a super crit, which would be even more powerful than a regular crit.
Oh, you can get that. Wait, so the negative could roll a mega crit?
Yeah, something like that. But it's not. It's not
the logic.
It's not worth it because the frequency with which you get the mega crits is so low that it doesn't matter. But they put something in there, and I've done that on occasion because it's fun to play around with those things. But it's not really worth it.
No,
but just to let you know that there's mechanics around that as well.
I bet somebody has like min-maxed this full Gamba build where it can, when it procs, and I'll release the YouTube video, make it looking like it's consistent. Although it took me 10 hours to record this clip. But look what can happen though. It's really good if you just want to give it. Trust me, I do it all the time. Just don't ask me to stream it. Yeah, no problem. Is there a way, Rory? I was thinking of things that have annoyed me.
Go ahead.
Is there a way of not lying on the floor while a monster just looks at you, brushes its teeth, and then just murders you to death?
Depends.
To the point where you could die you can't even control your character sometimes. From one foul mistake, you press that button one too many times, and it's going to kill you. It's going to knock you down. You're going to sit there. You're going to watch. It's then going to run over and kill you. Then your cat's going to res you, and before you even regain control of your character, it's going to kill you again. And you just might as well put the controller down.
Depends on what caused it. Now, there are these things which are basically what are they called? The big slams that they do where they like throw you back and you're in the ground and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like Devil Joe does that, for instance. Then he goes in and he chomps you. So in the case of Devil Joe, if you have something on your slinger, like a flash pod equipped, you can flash him and he won't attack you and you'll get up and you'll get away.
Right.
Or if you have like one of those scatter nuts or a crystal burst, the ones that like stagger the monster a little bit, you can use one of those as well. Now, if you have just the little red nuts that kind of suck, those aren't going to do anything. But yeah, if you have like a reasonably power ammunition, in some cases where the monster slams you down and you get thrown to the ground, you'll be able to recover. Now, there are other types of CC that they'll do. So like, say, for instance, Devil Joe will also like bang his foot on the ground, right? And that will cause your character to like,
that's
and then he'll grab you, right? So that there's a skill that's called tremors or tremor resist or whatever it's called, you can nullify that entirely if you stack
Yeah, I
that
did
skill
that on
high
Reggie.
enough.
You
Yeah.
could stand next to Reggie and just ignore his belly flop.
Yeah, exactly. So there's one for that, and then there's also in the case of Kushal the Aura, where like push you back, you can get wind resistance, and that will stop him from doing that. So there are skills that mitigate that, but there's different skills, and then there's certain attacks where you can't escape. So it depends on the attack. I don't know. I think that in the case of Alatreon, if you hadn't flashed them yet, and if you get like stomped to the ground and you're like trying to get up and whatnot, there might be some situations where you'll be able to flash him, and he won't insta-gib you. But yeah, it's rough. In some cases, they're just like, no, you're meant to die because you shouldn't have gotten hit by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's his frontal charge knocks you back, and you end up on like one elbow crawling, and you just can't get up.
Whenever you are in one elbow crawling, it usually means that you can use your slinger to shoot. And at least in a lot of situations. I don't know if it's the case for that, so don't quote me because
No, I'll try it. I've got some pulls to go.
Yeah, but like just make sure that you have good ammo equipped, like a crystal burst. In the case of Alatran, you don't have a lot of choices. It's only the crystal burst that's up top because at the ground there's only stones, I think.
There's only stones in Alatran's room.
Yeah. There's only
crystal
stones.
burst.
So you'd have to grab the crystal burst at the top, and you'd have to save it. So you might be able to escape it once or twice. Maybe
that's okay.
There's
also happened a lot, but when it did happen, I hate.
There's also flash pods. You can equip the flash pods if you think that's going to happen to you, and try a flash pod. But again,
yeah, I mean, I'm usually ready for a wallbang.
I'm not gonna promise you it's gonna work because I don't remember everything about Alatran. It's been a long time since I've done that.
Oh, for sure. I can't wait to get back in because now I'm going in like raw. Chop his toes off.
So
teach him a thing or two.
Let's talk about evade extender versus evade window.
Oh,
which is
yes.
Okay.
What are the iframes in this game? Because they boggle my head.
So, for starters, if you ever played a Souls game, you can consider the iframes of Souls to be giga generous when compared to Monster Hunter.
Agreed.
There are iframes, but they are super tight. Super tight. Now, evade window will get you, like, I think close to 3/4 of a regular roll in Dark Souls, maybe. But you need, like, evade window 5.
So, evade window... let's get these right. So one is the iframe booster.
Yeah,
and the other one
evade
is the one
window.
That goes further.
Evade window is your iframe booster. That's the one
Okay.
that if you want to roll through things, you need evade window. And evade window has kind of like 2 thresholds that you really want to hit. So like 2 evade window, you probably will barely notice a difference. 3 evade window, you'll be like, okay, I can kind of like do something with this. 5 evade window, you'll be like, oh, this is so good. I'm never going to be able to not have 5 evade window again if you get used to 5 evade window. So usually, like for a lot of people, 3 is the sweet spot. In my the Alatreon kill that I was pretty happy with, I think I was running 4 evade window on my Gunlance build.
Right.
Evade extender is the one that extends the distance of your rolls. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing about Switch Axe, for me personally, is I think Switch Axe is damn near unplayable without 2 evade extender. It is.
I mean, I've been caught so many times.
Yeah, exactly.
Just being a centimeter too far.
Which is why I said
not far
like,
enough, I should say.
Which is why I was saying like to your chat when I said that I was gonna do the thing with your set, I was like, man, can I just have 1 evade extender, guys? They're like, no, same set as mine. And I was like, God, I just want 1 evade extender, man, just 1. No, they wouldn't let me have it.
It's painful. Does evade window not work? Okay, so my theory was evade window works on physical attacks, but not on any form of
evade window
damage.
works on everything.
So
the thing
is
just
the case that it's so tight that if the explosion happens slightly afterwards, you're going to be outside that window.
Not only that, but certain hits have a lingering hitbox. So like say a monster does this to you, and you know it's like there's a hitbox here, a hitbox here, a hitbox here, a hitbox here, and he'll grab you. Which is why, like, if you're trying to roll through an attack like this, you want to roll against it, and that will cause you to be inside the attack frames less time. But it's very hard. Even, like, if you're used to, say, dodging stuff in Dark Souls, dodging in this game, even with Evade Window 5, will still feel harder than that.
Oh, it does, by miles. Yeah. Like, I could dodge forever in Dark Souls. Like, I've played it so much, nothing hits me. And I came in with that attitude. So I was like, this is dodge roll.
Do that.
It very quickly didn't work.
Yeah.
What brought it up about the explosion was Bracky, is you could dodge the punch, but while you're in midair, you still get hit by, if he's ignited, the explosion would get you. But because the hitbox is so large, I
So
assume.
to give you an idea, if I was playing Switch X, the more important thing for me, I think, in Elatreon, in Elatreon, I'd still want the balance because, like I said, I always like having Evade Extender 2 with Switch X. 3 is a bit much because you end up dodging too much. But with Evade Extender, I like having with Switch X, I like having Evade Extender 2. Some people prefer having only Evade Extender 1, but having at least 1 or 2 Evade Extender for Switch X is such a quality of life difference that it is literally, when you were, oh man, I can't get away from his punches because he's just like coming in punching you. It's because you're just missing like a couple of millimeters to completely dodge out of the way, and 2 Evade Extender will get you that extra distance where you'll just not be there, which is usually the safest.
Explosions a lot.
The safest thing in Monster Hunter is like when something is hitting, just don't be there. And Evade Extender really enables you to do that. The other thing about Switch X is, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but rolling in sword mode, considerably less distance than rolling in axe mode. So that's another thing. If you feel like you need to roll a lot, you want to be fighting in axe. If you don't want to be rolling a lot, you want to be fighting in sword.
Yeah, I was mixing it up a little bit. Sometimes I was going more sword, more those, because obviously axe breaks parts easier, and obviously I'm trying to break the head all the way through. And mixing it up between them is always like, Axe has got longer range.
Yeah, Axe does have a more part break and all of that, sure, but usually damage. Again, I'm not a Switch Axe expert, so I'm sure that some people in your chat will swear by one thing, some people will swear by the other. So, but yeah, usually if you notice, I would usually just draw in the sword whenever sword was available. There was even a point I think I even reloaded manual, and I was like, oh, he's gonna make fun of me for that reload.
Hey, we're reload brothers, man. There's nothing worse than when it happens to me, and I'm just like, my soul dies because I'll see my charge. Everything was good. And I'm like, you're just below the threshold. Get fucked.
Another thing that your chat wanted me to make sure to tell you is that at some point in your journey, you just decided that you were never going to do morph attacks ever again, and you never did.
No, let me tell you what this is. This is the clowns who actually don't see it and assume it never happens. Like, it happens all the time. It really does. It might not happen when they want
morph attacks in a long time, Mike.
Yeah, honestly, you're part of the clown show now. Because I do it all the time. I legitimately do it all the time. Maybe not as often as I should, for sure. But, like, this idea that it doesn't happen. I got this with people who didn't know why I was, like, finishing a combo, even though it wasn't going to hit it. Like, the last 2 swings or whatever weren't going to hit it. Yeah. It's like, because it gives me the charge bonus on the weapon. And they're like, oh.
Yeah,
well,
the charge bonus
I didn't know that
happened.
happened. Yeah, it depends what I'm going for. If I'm like trying to poke, say, obviously we've been watching Alatrain all day. If I'm trying to poke, I'm probably going to go into Axe, but you can watch through most of them we'll be doing like Axe, but the charge is good. We'll morph attack into sword to keep it going. You can't do super long combos on that fight, just
it's just there's a specific morph attack then that I think most people would want to see you do, which is the most powerful morph attack, which is wild swings.
Maybe I've not done that.
Wild swings into sword.
Usually I do it after
you do wild swings into overhead. You should try doing wild swings into sword, because that will do one of the highest damaging attacks of that weapon.
So that combo that I do that has a morph attack at the end of it would be wild swings into the overhead and then into the morph after that. Does it come before that?
You don't do the so you do the overhead first if you want to do that, and then you go into wild swings again, and then you go into the transition, because that's the one that all the Switch X mains use, for instance, for Wake Up, is that attack, because it just deals so much damage. Because there's an axe swing that you do before it morphs into sword that just deals like big chunks. It's a big hit.
So that would be what, a triple wild spring into morph attack?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a
usually
triple.
I do the other combo because that refreshes my weapon charge. You know what I mean?
But the
That's
thing is,
why I would do that other
the
combo.
axe thing, I don't think actually affects anything in sword mode. The axe charge.
No!
I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure, but I don't think
that can't be true. That can't be true.
I don't think it does anything.
Are you trolling?
I'm not.
Why?
Again, listen, I am not a Switch X main, so there might be some mechanics that I'm missing, but I'm pretty sure that the charge up of the axe thing. It gives you the bonus part break. I think it even gives you bonus damage in axe mode.
Bonus flinch is what it does.
Yeah, bonus flinch. And it might even affect how fast you charge the sword, but once you swap the sword, that doesn't matter.
Oh, that's cringe, bro.
I'm like 90% sure that's how that works. So
that's crazy. So I mean, no lie, I've been doing that since day one.
Yeah, I've noticed that
I'm like axe mode to get the charge up, and then we've got the charge, we've got the flinch, bonus flinch. Now we can go into sword, so we've got damage and bonus flinch. That's what I'm thinking I'm doing is like bonus flinch. That is a revelation. I think I just saw Jesus.
I guess that's
I've
why
been working on that for ages.
That's why your chat is constantly saying Wild Swings classic.
Well, sure, because they know. I kind of want to like check the tooltip now. Does it say like this doesn't affect things? I bet it says.
It just says that it deals things for axe. I'm pretty sure, but again,
I bet that's the wording.
I'm not 100% sure of what it does. Okay, but I just don't think it affects a sword mode because it's very different things. But yeah,
no way.
So now you know
that's very limited then, really, isn't it? I mean, that kind of wants you to stay in axe mode with a switch axe.
I mean, no, the idea is, do you want flinches? Do you want part breaks? Axe mode. Do you want damage? Sword mode. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the way that it works. Use it based on whatever is the most advantageous at the time, because also the move set also has implications there, obviously. But yeah.
I bet there's some deep lore on a switch axe, isn't there? There's some real deep rabbit holes on this thing.
What do you mean deep rabbit holes in terms of like combos and stuff like that?
Some switch experts are like,
there's a lot of tech.
There's some glasses going on there. There's some glasses happening.
Like when I did my switch X guide for, I think I only did one for Rise. I don't think I did one for Sunbreak. But whenever I would do the Switch X guide, it's always annoying because I'm like, okay, I have to like really zone in. I have to go study the files again to understand what each of the files does, because it almost changes every other game as well. And I'm like, okay, a lot of times it's even just like, what the hell does Dragon File do? Because it's so dumb, because there's Elemental File, then there's Dragon File. Why? And it's just a buttload of dragon damage or something. And it's just annoying. But yeah, it is a technical weapon. It is very much a technical weapon.
It's fun. It's fun as hell.
Which is why when you were saying, like, in the previous podcast, you're like, I like straightforward weapons. And I was like, and you're playing the Switch Axe. That's interesting.
But I mean, there's always an exception to the rule. It's like, this one's really fun. Yeah. For a long time, I thought the files that I was getting in my inventory were related to the weapon, because they're called files.
That's the other thing that I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, totally. Because that's a legacy remnant, because they're called files. The weapon's using some sort of file. It's like, well, is this what it's charging? You know, when it does the ZSD and it's like banging into them? I'm like, well, maybe that's like an ammo casing of some description or something like that. Maybe it doesn't work. So I was like, I'll just leave them there. I had the inventory space for it. But they're both called the same thing, right? So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just leave them in for... They keeps giving them me every time I go out there. So whatever. They're not called jars or bottles or anything.
I remember seeing that at some point last week, and I'm asking Chat, why does he have 69 files in his inventory?
Yeah, just in case. That's just in case. I don't want my weapon to be like, I don't want a message saying, you've run out of files.
You've ran out of files. Oh. No, the files that you have in your inventory, those are to make coatings for bow shots. That's what those are for. So you can craft additional coatings while you're in the mission, because they have like a limit of 50 that they can carry with them, I think. So you'll have like 50 power coatings, and then once you run out of those, you can craft more if you have those files to craft them into a special material.
I'm going to keep them for legacy purposes now. They're staying with me. Yeah, man. I'm not getting rid of them. I think it's totally worth. I'm keeping them with me. Like, when I saw my weapon had some sort of file interaction, I was like, well, these are files, so I'll just leave them there. They're not doing any harm. But for now, they're staying. They're staying historically.
So, you know about a vid extender versus evade window now. I would definitely recommend... I mean, I think you've used a vid extender on Switch X at some point.
I flipped between them both today. Which one was preferable?
For Alatreon, having evade window is also very good because of... particularly the lightning. I remember I would sometimes get stuck in the lightning or dodge a little bit too late on the fire thing, but you got the fire thing pretty nailed down, which is actually really cool. You had that very early on. I remember it was like day one or something. You were rolling into the fire. I was like, damn. Like,
that's an MMO mechanic. Yeah, easy.
I promise you that there's probably players today that they still see that big fireball and are like, I'm out of here. See ya.
Yeah. That is FF14 day one. I'm all over that.
Yeah. So, very important thing. Tell me about the Superman dive.
Oh, the Superman dive. Yeah, I hated it at first because it's really slow and to get back up. But I think it makes you full immune to damage because I've used it a couple of times. Mainly when I actually didn't discover this until Alatreon, and I'm not 100% on it. But there's a charge that Alatreon does when he glows red that lands right on you, and it's huge. So it was... And it's actually the same on Reggie. Reggie's got a leap in the air that lands directly on top of you and has a massive thunder AoE. And I couldn't figure out a dodge timing or anything like that for it, because one thing I've noticed about Monster Hunter is the dodge is late. But with Superman Dive, I don't take any damage, like, at all. So I think you're just full immune.
Do you know how to do Superman Dive consistently?
Weapon, sheathed, running dive is how I do it.
Running away from the monster. If you are running in the direction of the monster, you won't do a Superman Dive.
Okay.
You will just roll. So you have to be running away from in the exact opposite direction of the monster, and you have to be running for a certain amount of time. So you can't just be like, I'm running in Superman, because you'll just roll. So you have to be there's a timing to it that you should.
It's
probably
not very long
practice.
Though, right? I've done it pretty.
No. It's not long at all. It's super easy. It's just if you're trying to get it instantly, you can't get it instantly. There's like a little bit of a timing to it. And so let me tell you about Superman Dive. Remember all the stuff that I told you about? Oh man, Dark Souls, dodge from Superman Dive. You're invincible forever.
Yeah, I did notice. I just
forever.
don't take damage from this now.
And the
but
thing
you can't really
is,
do it in combat, which is clever.
You
I
can.
like that.
What do you mean you can't do it in
Well,
combat?
I mean, like in the middle of like a combo or something, because you have to put the weapon away, you have to initiate and run and go away. So it seems balanced in that regard.
It is.
Being able to get out of something. Yeah.
But that is the idea. That is your get out of jail free card. Kind of is the Superman Dive. That is your biggest defensive move for I think pretty much any weapon in the game. It's like you run away and you do dive, and you're pretty much immune. Another thing. You don't have to instantly get back up whenever you get thrown into the ground.
What do you mean? So
say a monster stomps you, and it's not one of those things where you're like on one elbow dragging and he's going to destroy you. Let's say, for instance, whenever in Brocky Dios this probably happened, you had an explosion, your character just like jumps into the air, falls into the ground.
Right.
You stay in the ground for a little bit. Your character will get up after a while, but if you stay in the ground, you're still immune.
For how long?
Until your character gets up, because your character will get up by it.
You're just full immune, even if there's explosions and things going on around you.
Explosions. So it's like because you're considered as being recovered from a big hit.
Yeah.
If you stay in the ground, you can survive a lot of things. Explosions. I don't remember exactly specifically for Brocky because there's like explosions in the ground. They blow you up. I don't know if those counts, but usually most things, yeah. So like a monster's wombo comboing you, and you're like trying to get back up to get out of the way, you're gonna die. Yeah. But if he wombos you once and your character's like in the ground and you don't move, he'll just like keep going and you'll be fine.
No way.
Yeah. So you should try and time when you get back up.
Yeah, I get how it works. That's such an odd mechanic. It just leaves you immune in that state. Because obviously your temptation,
because they don't want you to
rightfully, is to get up and get the hell out of the way.
Yeah. Because they don't want you to get like super womboed. Like I think.
I'm the king of being super womboed. Like,
exactly.
Yeah. Call me anytime. I'll tell you how to get super.
I think in Rajang even, like if you get hit by his beam and you try to get back up, you'll get hit again. But if you get hit once, you can stay on the ground and wait out the rest of the beam.
Controller smash worthy. 100%. Because I'm like, I just can't get out of this. No matter what is happening, there's nothing I can do.
Rajang hits you with the beam. You fall to the ground. You're still alive. Don't get back up. Just wait. Beam goes away. Get back up afterwards.
Is that in one of the tutorials? Have I missed that?
I do not know. That one might be one of those that you call acquired knowledge.
Yeah, maybe. Because that's kind of an important one, because you are very susceptible on many of the monsters to just be
Everybody instantly wants to get back up. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course you would. Why wouldn't you? Yeah, you're down on the floor and you want to get out of the way, and he's blowing up the area and something else is happening. I'm gonna have to, and that's gonna be so hard for me to implement. I guarantee you, I'm going. Oh
yeah, like fighting that urge. Yeah, it's gonna be super hard. I still do it sometimes. I was get up, get out of the way. But if you just stay down a little bit longer, you will survive. So yeah, you're able to do that after certain hits. Not all, but after certain hits, and you will survive a lot of things.
I'm not reading any of my YouTube comments after this. I'm not. I'm really not on my update videos that I've been doing. I've already been forewarned that at some point the people were like getting so angry, but they also don't understand the fun of it. But that's something I don't think I would have discovered without like being angry and put the controller down. Like, you know, balls to this. And, wait a minute, I'm not dead. What's going on? Like that's the only. Like I didn't discover the Superman dive until
Alatreon. Yeah.
Because it was the only time that it made sense to use. Because like, I just can't get out of this thing, so I was running and diving. I'm like, that definitely hit me.
When you start using Superman dive now, you're gonna be like, this is overpowered. Like, what? I could have done this the whole time. What?
Oh, I already am. I only there. Like, I already am using it as. I haven't been stressed about that attack since I realized that, but I didn't find anywhere else to sort of weave it in on that fight. It was like that attack.
Yeah, but I'm talking like going back to older fights that you struggled in. Like, yeah, it's gonna be absolutely insane.
Yeah, I'm gonna totally like if when I see Bracky now winding up the punch lunge combo, which I know I just can't survive. I'm pretty sure now I think back I could have just like not pressed anything and I would never die to that mechanic.
Yeah. There are some times that you can. I mean, I don't know which of those specifically you're talking about, but there are some that you definitely died because you were getting up too fast. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, 100%. It was I think it's called the punch dive that he did, because I knew it's weird in Monster Hunter is you know you're dead. At least I thought 25 seconds before you die.
Oh yeah, you know you see it coming.
Oh, the foresight is there. It's like, oh god, he's punched me.
It's over.
And I'm like, I can't do anything now. At least that's what I thought for so long, and I'm just going to die. And there's nothing. And if the only time it ever saves me is when the cat accidentally pulls aggro or something like that, and he just randomly turns around. So and you're like, clutch.
Another mechanic that you're not aware of is once your mantle wears out, you want to remove it as fast as possible.
Why?
Because the cooldown doesn't trigger until you remove it. So, like, say you have a fireproof mantle, and it just ran out, and you're still with it, the cooldown for the fire mantle hasn't started because you're still wearing it.
That hurts. That actually hurts.
I didn't think this one was going to be that bad.
No, that really hurts.
By the way, these are things that I pulled from your chat. I was like, guys, what do I need to tell them? And they were just like, tell them about mantle removal. Tell them about this. Tell them about that. They're the ones who fed me all of this stuff to bring to you.
Why would it work that way?
Because that's just the way that they designed it. But the weirdest thing, even to me, is that sometimes when you sheath your weapon, it will take it away, and sometimes it won't. And I don't know how it works either. I just know that whenever I can, I instantly take it out so that it refreshes the cooldown and starts counting towards it. But yeah, if you're just like wearing it in its inactive state, then yeah, there's nothing.
That's insane. So,
did you see what Bex just wrote in chat?
No. That is crazy to me. Like, I even had this discussion at one point. I was like, I'm not sure whether the cooldown triggers when you activate it or when it's consumed. Because I did notice that the cooldown wasn't linear.
No, it's because you still have it equipped. And if you still have it equipped, then it's not refreshing the cooldown.
That's actually pure despair. That's so despair. Because I've done that forever. Because why would you then click another key binding to take it off? Because you have to sheath your weapon to do that.
Yep.
But it's just not active anymore. So
yeah, but you have
cool
to take
down
it off.
For Christ's sake.
I think
right?
in Wilds it actually starts cooling down before you take it off. But I don't know if it's cooling down at like a slower rate or what the deal is with that. But I do know that in Wilds the cooldown starts the second that the effect ends. But yeah, you want to take that off. Oh my god, the look on your face,
dude!
This is not the one. I thought that this was going to be a nothing burger, the mantle removal one.
No,
I thought this was going to be a nothing burger.
A lot of these, I think I knew. I knew around the picture, right? I might not have had the complete puzzle, but I've seen the edges of the jigsaw pieces, right? That one, not even a remote glimpse of that even being a thing whatsoever. That's totally. I don't know how long on some occasions I've been like, why isn't... In fact, you know what really bothered me today is I was trying to figure out the timings on Alatreon. So I was like, I'm going old school, like we used to do back in the day, which is I'm going to use a stopwatch to figure out.
Yeah, I saw you doing that. I was like,
I was like, I
timing
need
the
I want a
eschaton.
stopwatch, and it came very apparent to me that it was like 5 minutes in, and my 1 minute 30 cloak hadn't reset. I'm like, what is going on here? Maybe I had it up for a really long time, because sometimes you'll put up like temporal cloak or whatever, and you just don't get hit, so it lasts its full duration. So I was like, oh, well, the cooldown started way later than when I put it on, right? Or the fire cloak isn't getting consumed.
Now I
just
understand.
Stays on for a bit.
Now I understand why they told me to tell you. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so I've gone like minutes of potential time, because in fact, on our train, it must have been driving people insane, because I didn't use the fireproof cloak until eschaton. So I just left the used temporal mantle just on for the entire phase, because I was not using the fireproof cloak until then.
Oh, God.
Which is like 5.5 minutes into the... In fact, it's 5 minutes and 50 seconds to let you know as to when it happens. And I could have used temporal mantle, 3 times during that duration?
No, I don't think it's 3 times, because they nerfed temporal, so I think it's got a longer... You can probably use temporal twice, maybe, before the first eschaton. I'm not 100% sure. But I know that temporal used to be so much more overpowered than it is right now. You have no idea. Like, temporal was just like, okay, I get to just do damage for free for like 2 minutes or whatever was the duration on that thing. Because right now, the way temporal works is whenever there's a dodge, it reduces the timing on it. Before, it's just like, no, it's a strict timing. Doesn't matter how many times you dodge.
Yeah, that's broken. That's super
That
stupid.
was so busted. You have
it's
no
totally fine on
idea.
charges.
Yeah.
Like Rocksteady. Rocksteady is so fun unless you happen to get stuck in the wrong
Rocksteady
animation.
is so
and you hear it
fun.
go ding, 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 and you just see your health bar, and you're like, oh, sweet Jesus.
That's whenever he's
Rocksteady
in
is a
lightning
kiss and a
mode.
curse. Yeah, Rocksteady is a kiss and a curse. Sometimes it's really good, and then sometimes it absolutely screws you over so hard.
They don't call it the suicide mantle for nothing. Here's a
Oh,
tip.
that makes total sense. Yeah.
Here's a tip for Rocksteady. If you're not using Divine Blessing already, you can just put 2 Divine Blessing on there to kind of like help you tank through hits. That's what I usually do. So
I'm
like
rocking 2 for Alatreon. Yeah, I'm on two Divine Blessing for that.
Yeah.
What is the cooldown on that thing? It seems random.
On what?
Is it
Divine
just a
Blessing?
chance? Yeah.
It's just a chance.
Oh, yeah,
That's why.
sometimes I've seen it
That's
go
why
back to back
people,
to back to back.
Yeah, that's why people like to say, "Oh, if you kill it with Divine Blessing, it doesn't count because it's random."
I'm sure.
But
Okay.
it's just ridiculous.
Stop using the tools of the game, nerd.
I always tell people like, okay, just don't use affinity then, because that makes the fight go faster. It's not fair. It's also a random chance unless you can get it up to 100%.
Yeah, why are you using a weapon, loser?
True.
You should do it with a can of Coke. See what's going to happen.
So
I can't believe the cloak thing. That's the biggest one today.
Another important one. Have you heard about something called armor charms and power charms?
Yeah, I have 2 in my inventory. I have 4 in my inventory. I have
you have
2.
4 of them. So you have the armor charm, the power charm, and the armor talon, and the power talon.
Yes.
All of them in your inventory.
I have all of them in my inventory. I
Okay.
will admit, someone spoiled and said they stack. And so
Okay.
I thought they were lying, and I
'Cause,
tried it. I was like, no, it totally stacks.
Because people told me that you were just using the armor talon, power talon. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of those. So another
Someone
thing,
did spoil that one.
yeah. So another thing people wanted me to tell you is how to do camera recentering. So the game does have a lock-on feature for you to lock onto the monster.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
right stick.
I wouldn't recommend that. No, it's not the right stick. There's an actual camera type that you can put in the options where it will straight up do like a Dark Souls lock-on. I wouldn't recommend it. It's not very good, because then you lose situational awareness of everything else that's going around the map, and you're just looking at the monster. And I'm sure you've noticed there's traps, there's walls, there's all these things you got to look for. But there is a functionality on it, which, like you said, you press right trigger and it will do like a lock-on thing. And then if you press L1, your camera will shift towards where the monster is.
For what, without being locked on? Because the only time I've considered
Yes.
using lock on was Reggie, because he jumps over you a lot, and the camera doesn't turn fast enough to see what he's doing.
So if you use again, you might have to go through the settings, because the settings have very weird things when it comes to camera. But there is a setting in there that will let you just like, you press L1, it'll focus on the monster, but it's not like sticky, so it won't like stay that way. It's just more like, oh, he moved over here. Turning it with the right stick is going to take too long. You press L1, it just goes like, whoop.
Oh, I
It just
definitely want
instantly
that. Yeah, for sure.
retargets. Yeah.
It's rare. It happens now. It was Reggie was the main one where it's like
Yeah.
this is just really irritating with him. How
That'll
does that work
definitely
with
help
multiple monsters then when they're having like a battle royale?
Whenever you press the right stick, if you look close to your mini map, there'll be like icons of all the monsters, and a target will show up on top of the one that you're locked into. And so whenever you use the L1, it will target that specific one.
Yeah, so you sort of set it with that. It's like that's the one you targeted. That's the one we're going to follow. Yeah, that makes sense.
So even if there's like 3 monsters all fighting each other, whenever you press L1, it's just going to focus the one that you selected. That takes a little bit getting used to. I don't even use that thing all that much. It's just whenever I see, okay, this monster's fast as hell and camera's not turning fast enough, every now and then I'll pop it up, but I don't use it that much.
Yeah, I've occasionally just been like, I just dodge to the side because it's going to charge me or flame breath me or something like that. So it's going to the side is usually safe, but on those occasions, and it's not, you're like, oh, God. And I just can't turn the damn thing fast enough to make it happen. But yeah, it's rare, but that's a really useful tip, actually.
Okay, so now potentially one of the most important ones.
Okay.
How many times have you pet Poogie?
I think you mean PP Pig.
Whatever.
Which is what I named it to. I don't know, once? Well, I mean,
so
it doesn't do anything.
It increases the amount of rewards that you get on the quest.
No way.
It
really?
Does. Yep. Ask chat.
That's a lie. You're baiting me. That pig is bacon. It
is what it is. It's been like that since the old games. Like everybody knows, you eat the food before you go out, because you have it's like a little ritual that you do. You eat your food and then you go to the pig and you pet the pig, and you have to land it though, because you know that there's a timing to the thing.
Googling it.
That's why there's a timing to it. What do you mean you're Googling it?
I don't believe you at all.
You believed everything I said. You're not going to believe me when I'm telling you that Poogie
It is rumored, but has never been proven, that snuggling with the pig gives the hoods a good look.
It 100% works, Mike.
I'm telling you.
It works.
Now, I could smell a debate a mile away, right? If you're going to tell me about cooldowns on cloaks, I'm totally into it. But touching that pig is absolute... That is, I can sniff it. I can.
The pig sniffs it too. The pig. No, on a more serious note, I'm not. So that is not actually proven. It's just like a myth. I don't think it actually does anything. It's just the joke we all make. But there is a thing where if you can pick it up, right?
Yeah.
And if you set it down on specific locations, you can unlock different suits for the pig. This is true. I'm not joking.
This is not going to help me kill Alatreon.
Yeah, I'm just saying. This is just... Since we're talking about Poogie, I figured I'd drop the Poogie lore. You also can steal things for you. Like, you can go up to some of, like, the stands, the food stands and stuff, and you'll, like, forage around, and you'll get, like, a potion or something. Like, he can do that for you as well. It's just a little bit of a tidbit thing.
Can I pick Poogie up and just put him outside, far away?
Why are you like this?
I don't care about these. This is like the canteen cutscene. I cannot believe for the second that there's somebody who sits there and watches that every time. It's insanely long. And
no,
it's just
nobody watches it every time. And
nobody.
Speaking of menus, did you know that you can speed through menus faster if you hold down R1?
Do you mean like crafting menus, stuff like that?
No,
I mean, I use right trigger to skip to like between the types.
No, the quest dialogue. You know, the zoom in when she's opening the book, and if you hold down R1, that goes faster.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I try to avoid speaking to her at all costs. So I would rather run, if I was in like the original town, I'd rather run down the stairs and use the board than speak to her.
Yeah, but even if you go to the board and you hold down R1, the animation of you going to the board and selecting all of that stuff goes faster if you hold down R1.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's a cool one.
And so did you ever figure out what the roaming ballista was?
No. Can
oh my god!
No, the last time I used it was that fight. I've never had to use it since.
Okay,
I didn't figure out what it was.
We definitely have to talk about it. So in that arena specifically, and this is going to be important if you do proceed to do the next couple of hunts, there is an artillery piece there that you will undoubtedly have seen that looks like a Gatling gun, basically.
Right.
That's the roaming ballista. Except it usually isn't activated at the beginning of the quest, which is why they tell you, hey, The roaming ballista is activated. Now, what happens with the roaming ballista, the reason why it's so cool and so important, is you jump on it and it's on a rail. So you can move while you are shooting. Now
wait. Is the
Go ahead.
The roaming ballista isn't what tied Velkhana down?
No. That's just.
Oh, come on! I thought that's what it was.
That's a scripted thing. It just happens at some point.
But that's what I thought that was, because it says the roaming ballista's ready, and like 20 seconds later, she got pinned down. So I'm like, oh, we've pinned her down with the roaming ballista.
No, the roaming ballista is an artillery emplacement that you can see. You'll notice that there's like a rail in the ground. If you follow that rail, you will find the roaming ballista, and you can jump on it, and you can use the left stick to move left or right in the rail, and then you can be firing, and it's very much like a rail gun. So, not a rail gun, a Gatling gun. So whenever they tell you the roaming ballista is active, you can basically just go like daka on the monster. You get like 100 rounds to shoot at it, and it deals a ton of damage.
I thought it was in the tower, because that's why I ran. I was like, oh, where is it? And it was like a little quest icon up in the tower, which obviously it turns out to be an NPC icon. And that's why I ran up to it to activate something. And then as I was doing that, she got pinned. I'm like, oh, it means she's getting pinned if the roaming ballista is
And
active.
there's actually different ammunition types that you can use on a ballista. I don't know if you've ever used the ballista, but there's
I have, yeah.
There's also a specific ammo type that you can pick up that's like a big like bolt. It's a bolt that looks bigger. They'll call it like a binder or something if you come close and you can pick it up into your inventory. So you can pick up the binder, you go to the ballista, and then you shoot that. You have to select that specific ammunition on the ballista. That will bind Velkhana.
What is coming up?
What do you mean what is coming up?
Something's coming up that this is relevant, and I'm a little concerned.
I'm just
can
letting
I ask you a
you
question?
know.
Can you turn cannons? Can you do that?
Yes.
How do you do that? Because it says right trigger to aim. I stand there pressing right trigger, and nothing happens.
You cannot be in the cannon itself. Okay, so
right.
You want to turn a cannon, you go to the front of the cannon on the wooden part, because there's the actual cannon, then there's like
along the barrel
on the side of the cannon. So let's say you want to turn the cannon left, you go to the right side, and I forget which prompt it is. I think it's circle, and you press the prompt, and your character will kind of like push the cannon because it's heavy, and it will aim slightly more to the other direction. It's not like you can free aim it. You have to get out of the cannon.
No, I mean,
put it in the position.
We've got a fire button, and we go on the cannon. Is that you can turn it a bit? That would make sense to me.
No. Because the idea for this is that you have to look at artillery as kind of like something that is more designed around multiplayer. You can use it in single player, but it is harder. The intent is that somebody is dealing with a monster, and somebody else is in the background, like setting up to shoot a cannon. That's like the overall intent of artillery, with the exception of the roaming ballista, because with the roaming ballista, you just jump in there and you like move it around and do the thing. But you can still use it in single player to its full effect.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously only used the cannon during Zora Madrigos.
Yeah, Zora Madrigos.
Where they were aiming at it, and it just got so annoying because I saw it an aim prompt, hold right trigger, I think it was to aim. I was like, so why is it not aiming? Because it would just miss Zora Madrigos. It was the size of a mountain.
I can't
and I'm like, I was like, why would you? How can you? What is going on here? Why are we missing this mountain?
Yeah, you just go to the sides of the cannon. You kind of like nudge it left or right.
So
to
annoying.
Aim it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have a look for that next time. That's the last time I used a cannon, I think, was all the way back then.
Yeah, usually in single player, you very rarely will use artillery, which is probably why you had this mentality of like, oh, artillery sucks. I don't want to deal with artillery. Artillery has advantages that you can take advantage of in single player as well. Like I said, you can bind monsters using the binders of the ballista. But usually cannons is stuff that you will use if a monster hasn't noticed you. So you can also think you have the ghillie mantle, which makes you invisible. So you can also like pop a ghillie mantle, put the cannon in position, then fire the cannon, but then the ghillie mantle is going to go away. But obviously, it's still like a lot of work to get a little bit of damage in. So it's only in some
they're in the arena, the special arena. They're like all over the place, but it never felt like worthwhile to ever use that. Compared
what about
to like
Dragonator?
Dragonator's worth, like especially if you can hit double barrels that hit like 2,000 damage. I'm not sure if it's percentage based, but you can hit it with both barrels. And the rock drop that felt way better than loading up, say, the ballista or the cannons and buggering about with it. Just
like I
jump
said,
down and...
those are things that are they work better in multiplayer. You can use them in single player, but usually they're better for multiplayer, or unless you have like a setup or something where you go into an arena and you have the ghillie mantle or whatever, and you set up all the cannons and you're ready to fire. But it's very hectic if you're trying to do that. Just, I just feel like taking off a couple of shots in the cannon. No, that's a terrible idea. It's going to be a waste of time. And the monster's going to destroy it.
For me.
What?
I don't think it's come up outside of Zora Madrigos, and obviously the Valkana fight, the roaming one, which I just confused because I'd never seen it before. So when it pinned him, I was like, okay, well that's probably the roaming ballista.
People were very upset, but I'm just like, no, this is actually important to notice that he's confusing it because of the fact that they're binding her at around the same time, and it can get confusing. I can understand.
Well, I just didn't bother looking after that. In fact, I was more concerned with like why it wasn't going off at a certain time. I was like, do I need to bait her into it or something like that? I was actually, because it was called a roaming ballista, I was looking for some sort of maybe reticle or something like that, where you had to kite her into the path.
If you go back and you watch some of those attempts, it's so funny because you're so close to the roaming ballista, but not close enough that the prompt shows up.
The worst.
I was looking at it.
Especially for Noah's. They're like, it's right there. And I was like, well, I don't know.
And it was funny. I think there's one attempt where you literally do like 2 circles around the roaming ballista, and the prompt never comes up, and we're just like, no, it's right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is a classic. That I could share in that frustration because when I realize it, I'm like, oh, okay.
So
yeah, it was there the whole time.
I'm curious about something. Did you end up doing Safi Jiva or not? I don't know if it's up in the rotation. Know. Safi Jiva is the big red dragon. The big blue, raid? The blue the raid.
I think so.
Or did you just complete the first part where he does the big AoE and then you leave?
Honestly, I'm not sure. We did a lot of raids back to back. Chat would know.
So you did you did Kolf to Roth, right?
We did that, and then we did a different one, which I assume is
the master rank version. No, you did.
We've done two raids. Yeah, we have done 2. Whether or not we did the kill or not, I'm not sure. The raids were kind of surprising to me. Obviously, I was basing raids off my MMO background, so I was expecting 16 of us to be
in the fight.
I was actually looking forward to the light. Yeah, I was looking forward to the light show of like everybody like bouncing all over the place and fighting this giant monster. I almost had this like, I wonder if it was going to be like an 80 Star Wars vibe with all of us like clinging on and trying to drag this giant monster down. Wasn't that?
No.
It was kind of fun. It wasn't what I was hoping for. It was okay.
You wanted more than 4-player hunts?
Yeah.
There's actually a rule in the lore of the game called the rule of 4. You can only ever take 4 hunters on a hunt. Because
what a cool, fun rule.
There was this one time that they took a 5th hunter, and that was a great tragedy because the wife of some chieftain ended up dying to a monster because there was a 5th hunter. And ever since then, they were like, we only hunt in groups of 4. 4 is the limit.
That's right. No hunters have ever died since. It's a perfect score.
They just cart.
Day.
See, now they just cart. Everything is fine. There's been no more fatalities ever since that.
Yeah, I think someone said, oh yeah, it's a 16-man raid. So I was really hyped for this thing.
But do you understand how it works and why it's a 16-man raid?
Kind of. The idea is that because they could like go and bury and whatever and reappear somewhere else, and then that team might be in the right area, and then they mark it on their map, which translates to you. Something along those lines.
There's nothing like that. The idea is, the monster is so tough that it takes multiple people to fully break it down. And so, let's say, for instance, you go in with your group, and we go in, we break the wings, and we break the legs, but we don't break the face, right? Mm-hmm. And another group goes in, and they break the face. So they only break the face. They break nothing left. So they get half the score for breaking the wings and breaking the legs because our group broke it, and we get half the score for breaking the head. So it's a way to kind of like share the rewards, even if you're not able to really do anything or do everything. The ideal situation for rewards is you break everything on the monster with your own group. But even if you can't do that, you still get more things because other people are contributing and they're breaking it down and wearing down his health. And in the case of Safi Jiva, there's also You know how he is absorbing the health of each of the zones that he's in? He kind of like absorbs stuff
Sure.
from the ground.
All I remember is he doing a really flashy animation. I was like, that's really pretty, and then the fight was over.
Oh, okay. So you haven't actually beaten Safi Jiva then, because that's
Probably
not
not.
no, that's not the end of the fight. There's like three.
Okay, that's the last thing I saw was he did this really spectacular animation, and I was like, ooh, and then the fight was over. So we
You've
probably
ever
did the repel.
You've ever heard, yeah, the repel. You've ever heard the NPCs talk about the Sapphire Star? May the Sapphire Star guide your way.
Yeah.
That's the name of the special attack that he does there. It is the Sapphire Star.
I thought that was me because they keep saying he's our Sapphire Star, and I was like, I'm the Sapphire Star.
You're following the Sapphire Star, which people have seen in the distance of the Elder Crossing and all of that stuff. But yeah, that's the name of the attack
Sure.
that Safijiva does.
I'm definitely doing that, 100%.
No, but that's the way that whole thing works, and then you get like rewards based on because eventually somebody kills it, and when somebody kills
Okay.
it, the raid ends, and you have to like go on another one if you want to do it again. So it's like if one group kills it and the other group isn't able to kill it, they don't get the kill, but they still get rewards based on the amount of part breaks that all the groups did. And how he progresses through is because every time that he sucks up the energy of an area, so before he moves on to the second area where he does the spectacular attack, he sucks up a little bit of the energy from the ground in that first area that he's in. And so there's a limited amount of times that he can do that, and having more groups forcing the boss to do it causes it to be faster. If you're trying to do it alone, basically it takes way too many hours to actually get a kill on him.
Yeah, it feels like a bit of a shame. I would have liked to have seen,
You just
the
wanted to
widespread.
see big 8
I think it's
16
it's supposed to be a
hunters.
fun weekly event, right? And it feels similar to normal kind of hunt.
Yeah.
Maybe my expectations might have just been too high for what I thought it was going to happen. I was like, oh, okay.
Call to Roth is
Um,
kind of the same way. It's like you also get a percentage bonus based on the amount of part breaks that people get and stuff like that. So it's kind of the same thing. The thing is, Safi Jiva reward system was better because it gives you customizable weapons.
Oh, I thought it was more for. I think some of the weapons I looked at for Call were like decent back in the day, but it was more for appearances.
So
like
the
just
way
cool looking weapons.
the way that Call to Roth weapons work is they're completely random which ones you get. And then if you do the master rank version of Call to Roth, they give you materials to update those weapons to master rank, and then they become really powerful.
Yeah, we got those. I got a few of those. I don't think I got a switch axe. I got a sword and shield
See,
and some of the things.
The Call to Roth was one of the things that I really didn't like the reward system because when it came out, the event lasted for 2 weeks, and I kid you not, every single bit of free time I had in my day, I was farming Call to Roth because there was a gun lance that had a higher shelling level than all the other gun lances in the game. And I was like, this is the only way to get it. And I got it literally on the last day, on the last hunt, right before they turned the event off. And I was like, Jesus
That's brutal. We need
Christ.
some bad luck protection here. If
Two-
you've already got the other
2
ones, don't give me the
weeks.
same one again.
Yeah, no, dude. I had like, to give you an idea, in my main save, the first save that I ever played, I never had to worry about Zenny again because every time I ran low on Zenny, I would just go sell Kulf to Roth materials because I had so many of them. I had like thousands of Kulf to Roth materials. It was ridiculous.
Oh, that's a grim place to be.
Yeah.
That's farming a cloak.
So-
A wings in
Yeah.
FF14.
And
Not
so in
doing that.
Safi Jiva, they changed it so that the weapon that you have equipped when you get the rewards, there's a higher chance of you getting that weapon in the rewards. So there's bad luck protection. And rather than just getting random weapons, you get a weapon that is fully customizable. And then you would grind Safi Jiva materials, and then you would just put those into like a slot machine, and you'd be like, okay, I'm gonna get artillery up. Artillery up on my weapon. But it was still better than Cult Roth. It wasn't perfect, but it was still way better. And they've improved on it since. But yeah, those were the weapon mechanics of Safi Jiva.
I'm kind of curious what's next for me, in your opinion, then. Because I've got Alatreon to do. That's
so
going to
it's
be my
like-
plan tomorrow.
Safi Jiva is gonna feel super easy after Alatreon. That's
Yeah.
number one. Number two is like Alatreon, you're still going to be struggling with it, I predict, even now that you know the mechanics, because your gear, despite whatever your chat will tell you, it is doable with your gear, but it's rough. It's going to be hard. It's going to be
that.
very
That's
hard
okay.
because you don't have that much raw damage. I don't think there's anything for raw damage in your set. You're full on elemental damage, but like I told you, elemental damage actually deals less damage than raw damage. So that's what you're lacking right now, like agitator, attack up, that type of stuff. But
That's fine. It's
yeah.
doable. If you're saying doable,
Yeah,
I'm okay.
I think
Doable we can do.
I think someone with 1,000 hours in Switch hacks, they said in your chat that they did it with your set in like 17 minutes or something like that. So I think
That's
it's
a long
doable.
time. Yeah.
I mean, for you, it's probably going to be way longer.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
We're in. Oh, don't worry. I'm not afraid of
so
that.
it's like
We're in.
I think you can do it, but I would recommend. See, there's this thing, which there's a quest that you can do. I don't know the exact name. Chat can tell it to you tomorrow if you want to do it. Which is a tempered Zenogre, and he drops tons of decorations. It's an event quest that is specifically for you to farm decorations. So you
I think I saw that in the event list, actually.
Yeah. So there's that one. There's also the Greatest Jagras. The Greatest Jagras is just like its lower tier.
Oh, I did that one. I did that. He's the guy who drinks the beach and he vomits everywhere. That was hilarious. Yeah. He was super fun.
Yeah. You want to know the funny thing? There was one time where I did that quest with, there was 4 of us for my chat and stuff. I do that quest. The monster ate me and then vomited me. And during that quest, everybody got like the best possible decorations. And I was like, oh, I'm glad I was able to be a good sacrifice.
Yeah, did you pet the pig? Because that's what it was.
Yeah, they pet the pig.
You pet the pig, I got
Absolutely.
swallowed.
They pet Poogie.
Easy. That's how it works. Choices.
Yeah, but you should definitely do some event quests, and maybe even like if you want to try out Silver Rathalos, Gold Rathian, because these are things you haven't done yet, and they're cool. Mm-hmm. It's not just another Rathalos. It's not just another Rathian. And if you're already like, okay, I'm going in like spoilers now, your chat can kind of guide you along some of the things that you should do, but I wouldn't recommend going after doing the second Alatreon quest before you finish the first one.
Yeah,
you did it today, and I was screaming at Bex, "No! Tell him to stop! No!"
Well, I was testing whether it changed something. I was trying to eliminate possibilities of what things could be.
It does change
science
things, but luckily you didn't see what changes, so it's fine.
Okay,
you're still unspoiled for that, but yeah,
that's fine.
But it's like what I would recommend is like even just to get your mind off Alatreon for a little bit, like go do some events because there's stuff that you haven't seen yet. And then go back to Alatreon. But you should farm maybe some decorations, or do the Zenogre quest just a couple of times, so maybe get like a couple of decos here and there. You don't have to super focus on it, but yeah, there's a lot of event quests that are fun. And I would definitely recommend Goldie and Silver Los, because those are pretty fun to do. Because they are very, I mean, they're not like super different, but they're way more violent and more powerful. And it's not like you have to hunt them around the map, because you only fight them it's almost like an arena fight. Those two.
Okay.
So they're not going to be too time consuming.
One of the things I do want to do tomorrow is get camps. I know I'm missing a ton of camps, which can be... I think there's like maybe twice as many camps per zone than I have, which is very frustrating sometimes, especially if I'm trying to get around. Is like it can take me ages depending on where the monster is.
I didn't tell you about the waterfall trap yet.
The waterfall trap?
Yeah, in the ancient forest where the Rathalos nest is. There's a waterfall
we've done
trap.
that. Oh, we've done that tons of times. Yeah,
but you know how to trigger it then?
I just get the Rathalos to do something near it, and it happens.
You can also put barrel bombs there and blow it up yourself.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I just keep the monster near it, and it happens.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay with it. The only mistake I've ever made is preemptively jumping off to get ahead of the curves, because they're going to go down there, and they just haven't. They've just lay in the water because they're stunned or whatever. The animation to trigger them to fall off the waterfall hasn't happened. So like a real hero and a smart ass, I triggered it and I saw it was in it. So I was like, yeah! So I dived off, like waiting at the bottom, like I'm gonna cut, and then it just stayed up there. And it took me like 5 minutes to run my ass back up to the top.
Yeah, there's a camp right next to that spot. Like literally right next to that spot.
Yeah, I figured there was. And I didn't see it when I was running around. And the only time over there is when I'm doing a mission. But I've seen it on multiplayer when we've gone into a zone. It's like there's so many campsites in some of the zones. And if I faint or something and I go back there, then it unlocks it for me.
Yeah.
But I just, one of those things that's just annoying when we go into a multiplayer mission or something. It's like, okay, I'm always far away and I just want to get closer.
It's like, I don't think you have to go out of your way to go get camps at this point in the game, because there's not that much more besides some of the few things that you're missing. So yeah, I don't know how much value you'll get out of that. I mean, you should get them for fun if you think that's going to be fun, but yeah, it can be annoying to try and find those. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. It's annoying when you can't. If they've gone across the other side of the zone, which the flying ones sometimes do, is they'll literally traverse 50% of the zone, and I haven't got like a fast travel point that's nearby or anything like that. I'm like, okay,
So
got to jog my ass all the way back up there.
your chat also wanted me to tell you about Palico tools. Do you know what all the Palico tools do?
The only other one I've seen.
The only other
I
one?
think it's-
You only know one?
Well, there's Vigor Wasp Delivery, there's
Yeah.
Vigor Wasp Station, and
Oh,
I got
no.
one that was a cleanser, I think.
Oh, okay. So
But that's it.
you can change the Palico tool to something completely different. So there's a coral
Yeah, I've
horn.
done. Yeah,
Yeah, the coral horn gives you buffs.
that's what I have. I have the horn. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
you don't.
I do.
No, you don't, because you can't have the healing stuff if you have the horn equipped.
No, I'm not using it.
Okay.
I have the option for it. But for
Okay.
what I was doing, I think we were doing bracket at the time, the healing made more sense to me at that point.
Yeah, so the way that you do it is you have to find the felines on each of the maps. It's probably easier to look it up if you really want to get all of them,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a bunch of them. So there's the coral horn that you have. There's the feline bug trapper, which is one that will trap monsters for you. I think you've used that one before. Not 100% sure.
Don't think so.
They'll also put like flash flies. The same way that they puts up vigor wasps that you can go and slash. They'll put flash flies there that you can go and slash as well for bringing the monsters down. The thing is, the trapper obviously is not going to be particularly useful for elder dragons because you can't trap those. But yeah, you can also tell them to put down bomb traps, and if they put 2 bomb traps, the monster will topple on the second one the first time that you do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you can
That's cool.
reliably get a topple with the trappers. Then there's one that's the one that I like that does like fireworks. I forget the name of it. The Myalatov cocktail.
Is that a burn effect?
He does a bunch of attacks with fire damage, and he shoots missiles. He gets this little cart that shoots missiles and stuff like that. It's not like
I've
super
seen that,
powerful.
like a baby cart.
Yeah, like a little.
Yeah, I have seen that in multiplayer. I thought it was some sort of like skin edition or something.
It's
like
called
that.
the Wrath of Meow.
The Wrath of Meow, the cat puns. I mean, I don't know where they came from. I don't know why there's such a large investment into the cat puns, but they doubled down on it, tripled down on it, and then quadrupled down on the cat puns.
The Palicos are
every
your
step of the way.
friends, and
Oh, they're great.
And I guess that now that we're on spoiler territory, your chat didn't want to tell you earlier, but like in the other Monster Hunter game, Monster Hunter Rise, there's dogs that you can ride.
So where's the dog then? Now, why?
There's no dogs in Monster Hunter World.
I immediately got sent several mods of changing the cat into a dog.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and I think Raven actually sent it to me immediately. He's like, you can change it into a dog. I'm like, yeah, but people are so invested in this stupid cat that they'll get mad if it's not the cat. So I'm just gonna leave it there, and maybe I can do something with it later on. But they were dogs in the other games, or did you have a choice of a cat or a dog?
It's just in Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak. That's the only one that has dogs. No other Monster Hunter has dogs.
Were people angry? Is that why they took them out? Is like, we just want the cat? Like,
No.
People
It's
went bad about
no.
it.
People love Palamutes. They absolutely love it. It's just it was a mechanic see, that's the beauty of like you have a game like World of Warcraft, right? Where they've been iterating on it for like over 20 years at this point or whatever. The thing is, there's limits to how much things they can change. The beauty of Monster Hunter is that the team is just like, hey, guess what? This game, it's got dogs. It's got cats and dogs. Got both of them. You can have one of each. So they just experiment with it. Like, for instance, Monster Hunter World Iceborne, we have a clutch claw now. You can clutch on and shoot monsters into walls. Monster Hunter Rise, it's like you can wyvern ride. You literally ride the monster and use it to beat up on another monster. And you get special attacks. Like, for instance, if you're riding a Rathian, you can do the tailspin thing while you're riding it.
So why did they take the dog away? This one,
like I said, it's not.
That was a cool experiment. Why did they take it away?
They're not taking it away. They're putting something else because the dog also worked as a mount, so you could ride the dog rather than do the raider rides you can just straight up
come on!
And not only that, it has controls kind of like Mario Kart, so you can drift with the dog.
Okay, so now we're Guild Warsing with dogs, and I'm sat here with a space cat that either really irritates me or saves me and then claims all the glory.
In Wilds, rather than having the dog, they have the special bird thing that I'm not sure if you've seen it in promotional material. You have a bird thing that you ride. Almost looks like a chocobo.
Oh, really? They're going that
Yeah,
way?
yeah. You have like
Oh,
this
okay.
this thing that you ride, and you can kind of like glide and stuff, and yeah. So
How
so that's
different should that experience be, in your opinion? So you've gone from Monster Hunter to Monster Hunter, and
yeah,
they try different things. Now, there'll be certain staples, I assume, that stick around.
yeah.
But, like, is it a case of, like, the Switch Axe, for example? In one game, it works this way, and then in the next game, it's like an entirely different beast.
It's not
Or is there
entirely
certain
different.
things that remain the same?
There will be certain things that will be familiar. So you're still doing like the switch attacks, but they will add new things. And the other thing is they have this thing that they tend to do, which is they'll have a game that's kind of more grounded, which in this case is Monster Hunter World. And then afterwards, they'll just do one that's completely insane. So the pacing of the fights in Rise and Sunbreak is completely different. Like you're way faster. So for instance, you get thrown into the ground. You can do something which is wirefall, where your character shoots out a bug. You're kind of like a Spider-Man. So your bug has a piece of silk that attaches to you. And so
Yeah.
you shoot out the bug, and then you pull yourself, and you basically you yeet yourself towards where the bug went. So
Okay.
there's
And you
a bunch
control
of
that?
yes, you control that, and there's a bunch of different things that you can do, and then they've integrated that into certain weapon attacks, and they're called silk mine skills. So like your switch axe, for instance, has a skill that has hyper armor, and your character just like does a combo of attacks that just bashes against the monster. And then it has another one where you know how in here after a zero sum discharge, your character flies off.
Yep.
In Sunbreak, you can do a follow-up attack after you fly off from a zero-sum discharge, which is called something Rising. I forget if it's Rising Dragon, whatever. It has a name, Rising Wyvern. And your character kind of like charges back into the monster with the sword and deals additional damage. So
I've tried that when coming off to
No,
try and clutch
no,
claw
no.
back midair in
No.
so like because I thought that'd be really cool if you could like get flung off because you do it during mounting, right? So it's
Yeah.
like this is in the game in some form or another. I was like, I'd really
so
love it if
it's
we could
like
do that.
for that more crazy arcadey type combat, that's Rise and Sunbreak. It's way more arcadey, way more off the wall, way more complex as well because there's so many more moves than you have in World. And then in Wilds, it's again, they're going back to a more grounded approach. So they kind of have like this contrast, which keeps things fresh, which I personally really like. Because, oh, we did the grounded thing. Now we're going to do the balls to the walls thing. And then we do the grounded thing again. So far, it's kind of been like that, but we don't know what they're doing in the future. But that's the beauty of it, right? Even though your experience carries over from game to game, it's not a live service game, so they can just completely change everything. So, like, for instance, in Rise and Sunbreak, you don't track monsters. You know exactly where everything is the moment you enter the map.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You don't study them at all?
No.
Is it not about the
I mean,
research and any of that stuff?
it's just, you know where the monster is. If you've never seen it before, it just shows up with a question mark, but you can see it in the map.
Yeah.
And so that's something that not all players like. Like, I like the grounded approach more, but I also like playing the arcade stuff. It's just like, oh, the arcade thing, we do have a little bit of fun, whatnot. But the grounded one is the one that I like more. But again, it's cool to have the contrast because you're fresh, right? Because I'm coming off of Rise and Sunbreak, and I'm coming into Wilds, and now it's back to the more grounded one. So it kind of like refreshes you rather than it always being the same thing over and over and over. The fact that they're constantly doing new games, because the formula for Monster Hunter is, here's the base game, which has low rank and high rank. And then we support that for like a year and change. And then here's the expansion, which in your case would be Iceborne, which is when you jumped into Iceborne. Yep. That's the expansion. And this has Master Rank, which used to be called G Rank in the old games. And it's harder than the other ones, but it's got a bunch of new content, right? And then they're like, and we support this for like a year and change. And now we're going to go make the next game. They're like, this is over now. Here's all this content. You guys can replay it, single player or multiplayer, whatever. But here's all this content. The game is still functional. And now we're going to go on. We're going to go make another one. So it's almost like a live service that's not really a live service because they just release new games.
No,
and it
that's
allows them to
totally fine.
keep innovating, and it's really cool.
There's been some revelations. Is there anything we've missed before we go too late here? We're at hour 3 of revelations
I
here.
think I know there's going to be stuff that I've missed. I know that your chat tomorrow is going to be like, oh, he didn't tell you this thing. It's like it's impossible to tell you everything in such a short time
I'm sure it'll
span.
come up tomorrow. I want Alatreon's head on a plate tomorrow. Whether or not that's doable or not, we'll see.
I'd recommend Gold Rathian and Silver Rathalos to at least give you like a palate cleanser before you go back to your ceaseless grind of Alatreon. Because it's just a fun thing. Just hunt a couple of different things. Get some
Kind of tempted
variety.
to not do that.
I mean, you don't have to. At the end of the
I'm
day.
kind of tempted to at least have a couple of polls just to see.
I mean,
right?
yeah, because now you
what's going
know.
on.
Now you know that all you need to do is topple because you've been breaking the horns consistently, which is to me personally that's the hardest part because the moveset of the gun lance doesn't lend itself to breaking horns. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm reevaluating my entire life after that cape reveal. That is incredibly annoying. I do want to check whether it tells you anywhere that like you should remove the cape. Like, does it tell you anywhere?
I don't know if it tells you. I just noticed it. I know that I've noticed it that like, oh, this doesn't appear to be refreshing while I still have it on. Guess I could need to take it off all the time. That was it.
Yeah. That's lost on me. That really is. It's one of those things that like I would never even consider that being a thing because it seems absurd. But you know, it's one of those things that you've just got to. I mean, I did notice something was wrong today, but I was in the middle of the fight, so I just was like, oh, I must have kept it up for a really long time, and it hasn't started its cooldown for a while.
But I mean, I'm assuming that tomorrow you're gonna have chat open.
Maybe. Like, it's tough to say. On the times I have had the chat open in multiplayer,
People backseat too much.
they're not backseating, but often very not aggressive. But if you don't press what they would have pressed,
Oh yeah,
they say all the time. Oh, we have the they. It's not all the time. Like my regular chat is like this, regardless of what game I'm playing. Right? They'll just crap on me constantly. But it's more of a case of that isn't how you do this while you're still figuring stuff out. I don't want to lose that. Like the last thing I want is like a walkthrough or a tutorial. That's no fun.
There's a reason why I haven't told you about the last things. So.
Yeah,
There's still
exactly.
some
Like
stuff
that
to be
element of
discovered.
surprise is still fun. I basically what I wanted, and I think I've got out of this tonight, is the things that you should have probably noticed, or you probably would have Googled because it actually came up as a part of the game, like mounting. The mantles I wouldn't have checked. That's why I was so shocked at that one. But other things I was expecting to gain more info on, like we have done tonight. Like, what is Elder Seal? I would have just been like, what is Elder Seal? Google it. What is Elder Seal? What is Affinity? Because I went many, many days without having any idea. And just because of like how some of the sockets and gems were worded, I was like, this has to be crit.
It
has
crit.
to be.
It's pretty much
Yeah,
crit.
exactly. I like deduced it from there as to what it should be. So a lot of things we discussed tonight is like, I know what something is here. Like I said earlier, I've got the jigsaw pieces, but I haven't got the full puzzle, the full picture of what it's supposed to be forming. The things that I haven't got are wild. Similar to like the wall break thing, like not requiring the drool. And it's like, but that's not what you told me, and it's very frustrating.
It's like I said, the reason we knew is because, you know, you might not know this, but for the Monster Hunter community, a beta comes out. We're just like, yep, we're just going to put 200 hours into this. Yep.
Oh, that's normal. I mean, I do that, you know.
It's like
PTR. I do that a lot.
It's like PTR in World of Warcraft.
Exactly.
Basically. They come out with a beta, and we're like, we'll just go ahead and put 200 hours. Yeah.
But there's an advantage to that I don't think, if you're not a staunch, this is a bit like, this occurs for every game.
Yeah.
Without getting too preachy, despite the name. There's a knowledge that is acquired if you are very into a franchise and you're following, say, your content creators or news releases or whatever it is, where all this information is kind of spelled out to you in detail. Path of Exile is really good at this. They will, in their announcements of upcoming things, they will go into quite a lot of detail about what is changing and what is happening. That won't appear in like the released version of the game in some sort of written form, unless you want to read a huge amount of patch notes.
That's an interesting thing because I reminded myself that they did do like a video announcing Alatreon, and I was like, I think they said the mechanics of Alatreon in that video. So I went back and I watched it today, and they don't. They just say use elemental damage. You need to, you know, coordinate with your friends to use elemental damage. They don't actually talk about the horns, which I kind of thought they did, but they didn't.
Yeah, a lot of people don't remember where they acquired certain knowledge, but I know from all the videos I've ever made where we've done alpha and beta testing is I'm telling people stuff that the game won't tell you, or that I found because I had to do it without a tutorial. Like the game, it wasn't in the game yet, right? When we did alpha and beta, the tutorials weren't there. So what did we do? We threw everything at it. We tested things out. That's how we got that knowledge and then dispersed it amongst the community. And then it comes to the actual game and you're coming in, like the way I did, it's like, I'm going to deal with what the game presents to me. And often it's not accurate.
It's not
right?
as easy. So like a lot of people before they even did the switch axe, this was a big thing that everybody in chat was saying, tell Mike to go watch a switch axe tutorial. He needs to go watch a switch axe tutorial.
After we finish, I know that sounds backwards, but there's a joy that I really relish in of finding a new thing. Like I'm glad that you told me about that combo earlier. Like that I'll give a try.
But one of the things that you should do, you don't want to go do a guide, but go into the training room, smack the dummy around a little bit. See the different.
Oh, we've done
moves.
that a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had to do that because hitting Alatrain's head was so frustrating with certain attacks. I was like, I need to know which at least 2 attacks
that can
has
hit
some
the head.
sort of verticality.
Yeah.
Because very often it's a sideways attack or it's a diagonal but low attack. So I need to know the ones that, which is why we were hitting the head way more consistently today. It was exactly that. I went to the training dummy and I was like, what is something that has some verticality to it from an opener, especially. If you're coming in, you're charging in after a lightning or a fire or something, I need to be able to make sure I'm hitting that head. Otherwise, we're just losing damn, which helped, which was really good.
Yeah,
that's
things. One of the things that you can do rather than go watch a guide. It's just like, oh, I'm just going to go hit the thing for a little bit, see if I come up with a new tech or something. And yeah, that's how people do it, basically, because the game does not tell you all of the combos.
No, I think I've looked at the combo sheet a few times. There's one combo I've never really utilized because it didn't seem to fit for me, but it's probably very good, which is the burst. It's like you like wild swing into a reverse burst, which uses 1 ammo shot but does multiple attacks. For all I know, that is actually a fantastic attack. It's like the clutch burst or something like that.
Oh, okay. That's stuff that uses the slinger. Which I don't know that much about stuff that uses slinger for switch axe, but yeah, that is good because usually anything that is slinger burst will stagger the monster.
Oh,
so
really?
Yeah. I mean, depending on the attack, obviously you can't stagger out of everything, but yeah, usually slinger bursts will stagger. So like for instance, I know that the greatsword has a move that you do a slinger burst, it staggers, and you skip all of the other moves of the greatsword to go straight into true charge slash.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
True charge slash is like the biggest damage move in the game, basically, with the greatsword. Yeah, so you can skip all of the preamble and just go straight into true charge slash by using slinger burst. So slinger burst is sometimes also a shortcut for certain moves.
Interesting. Yeah, I just read it as a long wild swing combo. And again, like we said earlier, I always preferred to actually do the overhead to get that flinch charge, which I now know actually wasn't helpful at all in any way, shape, or form.
It is helpful if you're using the axe. It's not...
Which is when I immediately swapped out of it because I had the buff and now I want damage plus flinch. So as soon as I got the buff up, every time, I have immediately gone, cool, I've got my buff up. Now I can swap to sword and get like all the bonus damage with bonus flinch. Thumbs up. What a party this is.
Fantastic.
What a great time. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal.
But yeah, also another very important thing for Alatreon, do use Health Boost 3. That'll help you. That'll definitely help you.
Health Boost 3?
Yes. Yeah, Health Boosts. Vitality Boost, I don't know, Vitality Decoration, whatever.
Yeah, I have that. Yeah, I have that.
Because I think you were wondering if it was worth it or not. Yes, it is worth it. I saw in one of the attempts you didn't even put your max health, which was frustrating because you didn't eat fresh food, so your health wasn't maxed out. And you're just like,
it's if I want to tack up, I think food is something we'll mess with tomorrow.
But you can, maybe you don't know this. If you use a max potion, that will top up your health to max.
Oh, yeah, I've done that tons of times.
No, but I mean, like, it goes, let's say if you eat the food, right, and your health is not on the maximum level, if you pop a max potion, that will increase it further.
Yeah, we've done that many times.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
In fact, I was trying to bypass it. Sometimes I'll do max potion plus rations because obviously ancient potion does both at one go. I only ever look at that. Like I do let it slide a little bit if, let's say, I want a large attack up because we want to do a bit more damage or whatever. But it only gives me like 40 HP. I might leave it there instead of the 50. 20, I'll try and buff it up a little bit further than that. Depending on what the bonus food is. But I think that's tied to fresh ingredients as to whether it will give you the HP.
Yeah, that's why gourmet vouchers are so good, because everything becomes fresh and you have a 100% chance of activating the buff.
Where'd you get them from?
Gourmet vouchers? Usually it's event quests, and there's a chance of getting them on the Steam, on the Steamworks.
Yeah, because I only had 5.
Yeah,
that's 5 total I've collected in the game.
That's the bottleneck. The gourmet vouchers, like I told you in the beginning, that's the bottleneck. That's very frustrating. But there is some event quest that I think gives them, but it doesn't give too many, so you'd have to do a bunch of it to get it, I think.
Sounds like farming. Pass.
Yeah, exactly. But a regular voucher, because there's also regular vouchers, those guarantee that you get the food buffs, but they don't give you fresh ingredients. But you can make up for the fresh ingredients with max potions and rations, so it doesn't matter. But you can still ensure, and those are easier to farm. There's like an event quest that gives you regular vouchers, and that one's fairly easy to do.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look at that. I want to mess with food in the morning to try and maybe make a custom dish or something like that that's the ideal.
Yeah, you need to look. You need to look at the buffs, and then you can save it as a custom dish that you can just bring up whenever you do the thing. But yeah.
Yeah, but I just chef choice it out.
There's also the thing, like you just said, you don't want to farm gourmet vouchers. Just tell your chat to feed you. Just have someone be there. Like,
I can't because they sit in the lobby, and the second I come out, they spam the messages in game about like carting and things like
Mike.
that.
Chat, feed
They're
Mike.
toxic. I can't tell you for this game how many ingenious ways people have tried to come up with to contact me in some way because they cannot stand that I haven't known something or done something in some way. And
just tell them this thing.
We've done. They started communicating through Steam messages, and then obviously they went to Discord. And I've had so many friend requests from people I don't know that aren't bots. I've got 66 right now, pending.
They're like, Mike, I have some information you need to know. They're like Jehovah's Witnesses, dude. They're like, hey,
only
listen.
about a third of these are bots. They're other people, and they send a message saying, "This is just over the weekend, by the way. I've had 66 over the weekend." Because I cleared them out. It was getting annoying. And they just say something like, I really think you should see this, or something like that.
And then they link you
to get something through to me.
They link you a YouTube video or something, yeah.
Yeah, it's gotten so bad. Chris joins the chat in the Twitch in the morning because he's like, it's just full of essays. Like massive essays are going on. Like people are just, but that's great because people are investing where we are.
People are invested. Yeah. That was the thing that I was trying to tell people. There's a ton of people that are like, oh my God, he's so bad. How come he hasn't figured this stuff out? He should have looked this up. And I'm just like, the main reason why this journey is so magical and so cool is because you don't know those things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I enjoy myself. I don't benefit from I'm only going to get to, the way I look at it is the same as I look at any raid boss or anything like that. I only get to do it without knowing what's going to happen once.
Yeah.
Total. Just once. That's the only time I get to walk into Alatreon and be like, what is this and how does it work? And after that, I never get that experience again. So that's why I enjoy it.
Alatreon is the only one that really has, I think, a mechanic that is that complicated. So the rest is just going to be brute force. Have fun.
Oh, we'll see what Fat Alice has got for me. Yeah, we'll see what Fat Alice... so Fat Alice I can do. I could do our
I don't know if you can do Fatalis with your gear, though.
Oh, really?
That... I don't know, man. Like, I wouldn't try to do Fatalis with your gear. Screw that.
I mean, I'm going to have a look. We're going to have a little look.
Let me tell you, okay? The first time I killed Fatalis solo... Which, by the way, Fatalis, day one, Kanta didn't kill Fatalis on the first day, I don't think. And that we're talking about like super optimized set with the best possible combinations of stuff.
Is this
and one of
augments?
One of the best players in the game. Okay, and I don't know if he killed it day one, but I remember that when I stopped trying Fatalis, he was still going and he still hadn't done it. And we're talking like, I don't know, 13 hours of live stream, something like that I had done for my first run. So, yeah, Fatalis is on a different level. But, yeah. To give you an idea, my first solo kill of Fatalis, I had about 30 seconds left before the quest timed out. I was literally just flailing, pressing the button. Just die. I had the skull, and I was like, just die. Just full panic mode. And I used every trick in the book to get him. So, yeah.
And the block is just farming. So that's a fight that's assuming you've augmented your gear. From what I could tell, I have not augmented anything. It's all using resources I've not seen in the game.
From the guiding lands.
It's farming lands, is it?
Yeah, it's guiding lands.
Okay.
You have to get familiar with...
That'd be a shame if that's the block. That's the sort of Ozma of this fight, of this game. I mean, because people will hold it over me forever, but whatever.
you can do Fatalis without augments. You can do Fatalis without augments, but I think you will have to change your gear a little bit. I don't think you'll get away with what you have right now against Fatalis because you will need way more damage. But then again, I'm coming from a gunlance perspective, which our weapon kind of sucks unless you use bugs and glitches that break the game. So there's like a bug for the gunlance where you put down a snowman, which is an event thing, like just a decoration snowman, but for whatever reason that glitches out with one of the mechanics of my weapon, and you can just like one-shot a boss with the snowman.
Those things are kind of fun. Those things are always fun when they happen, and you just kind of like, what the hell?
So people do
virally.
So people do speed runs of Fatalis with these little snowmans, and I'm just like, oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I'm the jerk because I used max potions or whatever, right? You know, I'm the jerk off because I got earplugs, right? I'm the jerk off. Yeah, I'll take that.
Anyway, I've taken so much of your time already. I'm so sorry.
Oh, but, well worth it though.
I hope it was worth it. And again, like, you're not going to retain all this information at once. So you can just message me on Discord if you want me to give you a refresher on anything or whatever. Just let me know.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool. I'm not sure what your schedule's like, but obviously the other game's coming in a month or so.
Yeah, the other game's on the 28th releases.
Okay. Well, maybe a catch up around then and see where it goes. Or if you see something, you're like, we have to talk about this. We have to talk about it.
I don't think you'll miss out on much, but like I'll remind you if I see that like on your stream, I'm like, oh, we forgot this one thing. I'll like throw in a reminder on the chat that we have or whatever to just like give you a refresher. But yeah, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm hoping for a very different experience with Wilds. In terms of I don't need to do it blind because we'll all be blind.
Yeah.
And being able to like figure things out together. I'm not intending to like race against anybody or anything like that. But more have the experience of, okay, guys, we've got past this. Let's all jump into multiplayer and farm our armor together. You know, get that kind of thing going. So I think that might be a really fun and very, very different experience to this.
Oh, yeah.
Is we'll work through things and it's like, okay, who needs this? Who needs to get the jelly armor or the barrier armor or whatever's in it.
That's the stuff that I did back in the day for like for farming behemoth because people were struggling. I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna do a behemoth lobby. Kultaroth, okay, we're filling up a lobby of Kultaroths. Hell, I would organize lobbies across multiple platforms. So we'd had like an Xbox lobby, a PC lobby, a PlayStation lobby, so that everybody would be getting their clears because everybody that would join these lobbies were people that watched my videos, so they knew the strategy. So everybody would go in and everybody would be getting their clears. Alatreon was like one of the last ones that we did, Alatreon and Fatalis. I'd just do lobbies, and it's like, I got nothing to gain from this monster. I'm just here to help you guys clear. And people would come in and we'd clear it, and they'd get their clear and get gear and whatnot. And yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I'm totally down to do it. I can't. I'm really excited to see a totally different experience and try. I'm going to use Wilds as the excuse to try a bunch of weapons. That's what I'm not going to do that with this one. I'm going to leave it at the Switch axe, but the next game, I want to be really messing around with a whole bunch of different weapons.
I think you're a charge blade guy. I'm telling you, you're a charge blade guy. You're like, oh, I don't want to block and blah. But what if I tell you that with the charge blade, you do this precision block thing that works as a counter, and then you do a super amped elemental discharge?
Oh, it's got parry.
Oh yes, the charge blade has a parry. I mean, hell, in Wilds, everything with a shield has a parry, though. Yeah, everything with a shield. But like the charge blade has a parry in this game. It's the only one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going ranged, obviously.
Yeah, I mean,
we're not going to go that far.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, listen, we don't want to get crazy or anything.
I've done ranged in the past. It was when I had to do the grind of Kultaroth because I was like AFK. Just like sitting back, AFK killing Kultaroth.
Yeah. I mean, I can show you like peak ranged gameplay.
For those of you only on audio mode, Preach just leaned back in his chair looking at his phone, holding the controller in one hand.
Hang on, I gotta move.
Moving with his nose.
That is peak peak range gameplay.
It's not exactly like that.
I bet it's not. I'm memeing on you. Don't worry.
I know you're memeing. It's just you don't understand. The art of sarcasm is lost on a lot of people. They have no idea how many people are mad at you for criticizing ranged on the previous.
Oh, I don't care. Be mad. You don't know how many. You think you're mad? Think of the people who've watched me wear a cloak for like 5 minutes every pull all day today. It's not even cooling down or refreshing. You think you're mad? You imagine how they're feeling. Tomorrow will be different.
Yeah.
All right, I have to go.
Yeah.
It's gonna be 9 p.m. before I get home. I left at
big
like
long
6.
one. Can you try and get, like, I don't know if Chris is there or whatever. Can you try and get that file to me though?
I'll do it.
The audio file. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate.
I don't need
that.
to rush out the door like last time.
Yeah.
But
let me give us the outro, guys. Thank you all very much for watching this episode of the Kast. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, bell notification icon, all that jazz. There's links to Preach's stuff in the description down below. Make sure to check it out. His journey into Monster Hunter World is continuing, and he's going to be joining us for Wilds, which is going to be awesome. And yeah, that's going to be it. We'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.
Bye, everybody.